All right.
It's
We are
Up and
now
down.
live. Sorry, I should have given you guys a countdown.
it's all good.
No warning.
My computer
We're doing it
literally
live.
just glitched right as I clicked the studio mode thing to get us ready to transition. I was like, no, don't do it. All right. Hey, everybody. This is Armchair Admirals and Generals. We are back with episode 3. And Night Cobb just reminded me 2 minutes before we got started that I was supposed to add all our names below our cameras, and I forgot. Whoops. But
I don't know
yeah,
if it's too late, but can you flip me to face you guys? I'm kind of like,
maybe.
I mean, I guess I can. Hold on. Let me see if I
Here,
can.
I'll
Is
look
Wait,
this
no.
way. You look the other way. We'll both just look away from each other.
I can
like
do
we
it.
hate
I
each
can do
other.
it. I can flip.
That kind of works better.
Oh wait, no,
I
it's
just have
not.
to. I have
Hold
to
on.
change my chair a little bit. It's not fine. It's fine. I was gonna say it's not fine, but it is fine.
There. No, I did it. It's done.
There we go. That's perfect. That's
Yeah.
perfect.
Uh-huh. See, I have and
Professionals, guys. Professionals.
professionals.
Professionals at waging war. That's about it.
Yeah, I was gonna say not professionals at this. That's for sure. Although
Yeah,
trees getting there.
I'm working on it, getting a lot of practice. The issue is you guys are down here on my screen because I have OBS with you guys on there down there, and so I'm looking down at you, but my camera's up here, and it's every time and luckily I have it set up when I do Pathfinders with Nazarus, so that way he's over here on my right hand side, but I have my camera flipped, so I'm looking over at him like this, but the camera's flipped, so it looks like I'm actually looking at him off to the left on my screen. So, but yeah. This is Armchair Admirals and Generals. We are the Armchair Admirals and Generals. I am Trio311. If you're not familiar with my channel or my content, I'm a dad and veteran gamer, former Infantry Marine, current U.S. Army National Guard flight paramedic. Do a lot of different things, but one of them is I host this podcast with my 2 partners. Down below me, under the Admirals sign, we have
Night Cobb. You wanted me to fill in. You gotta give me a better lead in to let me know that's coming.
Okay,
no, that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. I didn't know if he was gonna say it or you want me to fill in. All right, you forgot my name. That's what happened. I already understand.
No, I always let you say your own name.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's okay. I got it. He had a Marine moment. He was like, he'll say it.
I had a couple crayons before we got started, and so I've got a little bit of snack brain going on.
Yep. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I got it. You're not you when you're hungry. Fine.
Yeah.
I think I owe somebody a nickel there. All right. So yeah, I'm Night Cobb. I stream on Twitch on occasion. Not terribly entertaining, and I occasionally put out a YouTube video of me really struggling with DCS. But you can find me there. Mainly, I really just I'm grateful enough that a couple people like talking Star Citizen in the military and their relation with me. So you can catch me doing that with these guys, and occasionally on Captain's Table with Astropub, which Attira and I'm going to go ahead and steal the plug. We're scheduled to do this Saturday, so looking forward to that.
Yeah.
And below me, under the Generals. Now that you've had the lead in, and you should be prepared.
I'm absolutely prepared. What's
Night
up?
Cobb, and I might have just stroked out a second, but a little bit about your background. What brings?
Oh
you
yeah,
to
sorry, I
Armchair
didn't. Yeah, I
Admirals
didn't
and
talk.
Generals?
Yep. Yeah, sorry. So Navy, 15 years, senior enlisted. Been doing the submarine thing the whole time. So I've served on fast attack submarines and guided missile submarines. So the Ohio class guided missile variants. So the ones that don't carry the nuclear ones, the ones that carry gross numbers of Tomahawks.
And they're also very difficult to find high definition footage of in order to put into the intro video.
I'm gonna find you some footage.
I need some.
It's actually not that hard. They actually did some big specials.
I watched so many
on the
videos
Ohio class
that were only like 480p, 720p, and I'm way too OCD to have 480p and 720p in my videos. 1080p.
I'm gonna be honest with you, I
or-
didn't even think like OBS would even accept that level of definition at this particular
Yeah.
point in time.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair.
I think you'd be fine. Just be prepared for them to copyright strike you or whatever for stealing their footage that, anybody with a drone could take now.
Mm-hmm. So far, so good.
Yeah. That happened to me on the capital ship video.
Oh, did they?
I totally ripped off somebody. Yeah. Because it was the only good high quality footage I could find. Boomer steaming out of port. And I was like, yeah, I'll use that. Sure. They were like, bam.
Okay.
They didn't strike me. They just monetized it for their own personal benefit.
Bummer.
And under generals, continuing on, we have.
Hey everyone, I'm Attira Kell, YouTuber. I created and I'm still working on the Soldier's Opinion video series. You can find me at youtube.com/Attira Kell. And I'm also on Twitter, but sure. Okay. Yeah. Attira Kell on Twitter as well. I don't care.
We made him do it.
I had
Gun to his head and everything.
Yeah, I'm old man. Okay. Yeah. So, my experience is that I started life as one Abrams tank platoon leader. Have several deployments under my belt. I transitioned to an MI officer. I've done MI military intelligence for 18 years. And a couple more years, I'll be ready to retire. I've served at every headquarters element except the Corps. So from platoon all the way up to Army Theater. And a lot of experience there. So I try to apply that towards a soldier's opinion. Speaking of which, I'm about 21 pages of scripting complete of EW video of recording it. So I got another 2 pages done today in between meetings, working from home. Tomorrow I'll get a little bit more done. And hopefully then I can start editing and throwing stuff together. Yeah, it's going to be a long one.
EW being electronic warfare. So keep an eye on that.
Warfare. Yeah,
Go to these guys' YouTubes and give them a follow, especially Night Cobb, because the more YouTube follows and watches he has, it makes it easier for my bot in my Discord to find him so he can get notifications.
Don't pity follow me.
Yes,
So
give
bot will
the
work.
give the
You can pity
follows.
follow me. I'm happy for you
Yeah.
to pity follow me. All right.
Dude, Attira's got sick production value on his YouTube videos. I was watching one the other day. I love that Phoenix Fire thing you've got for your opener.
Yeah, that came from so the history of ammo was we were born out of Armco, which is Morphologist and Captain Shack and who's the other guy? There's a third one and I can't remember now. Anyway, we were born out of them. We all met there and then we all kind of broke off to create our own organization. And at the time, one of their guys was making all these icons for people, and ours is kind of this attacking avenue of approach, and then it's got these wings on it. So the guy who did it for me just kind of turned that into a phoenix, and that was kind of where that came from.
Yeah,
so,
cool.
Yeah,
it's fire, man. No pun intended.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
But he'll be here all day.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what we do here on Armchair Admirals and Generals is we talk about Star Citizen. This is a Star Citizen podcast, but sometimes we talk about military sort of combat related topics, things that are, we have, I hate to say experience with because none of us have ever flown a real life spaceship, but the Star Citizen and CIG takes a lot of influence from different aspects of real life in the development of the game and the aspects of the game. And so they definitely do their homework. And so we like to, as people with a background in things that are a lot of things that are similar to elements of Star Citizen and spaceships and, the operation of them, we tend to look at them with a little bit of, I hate to say biased perspective, but you can't help it. That's your background. It is what it is. But we come on here to share those those thoughts with you guys, via our perspective from our different backgrounds. But today we are not talking anything really combat directly related, a little bit or tactical or military related. We're talking about modularity with post.
Hey, Tree, I'm sorry. I'm going to interrupt you real quick because I do want to discuss one thing real quick, just as an example.
Sure. Absolutely.
And I totally didn't brief you on this prior to the show, and I apologize. But
we're doing it live. We're doing it live.
Doing it live. I'll tell you what. You throw an audible at me at the beginning of the show, and I'm going to come right back. So they just had the Inside Star Citizen, right? And my military brain was watching the whole interior rework, and they had to discuss we didn't have enough space, and we had to completely rework the interior and the crew quarters and all that kind of stuff. And I'm watching the interior rework, and immediately my brain starts going to, I'll be honest with you guys, these combat ships, they got, I don't know if they know this or not, but I mean, they're going to give up the creature comforts first. Like, that's how they work. Like, the first place you're going to take space for like critical components and engineering related stuff, and the torpedo room is going to be the common areas and like the crew messing areas. Like, those can all just shrink down as they provide more space for the things that really matter to a combat vessel, because that's how we do it in the real fleet. Like, trust me, it's you get just enough, and then they take a little bit away from that, and then you realize you have just enough with a little bit less than what you thought you did. And I kind of expect that to happen more than a few times as they start building out the capital class vessels, and they realize with relay networks and resource management systems, like, little by little, you're going to start eating away at that crew space. And I'm really excited about that, because I don't get enough of that in real life. I want to be cramped and stuffed on board my Perseus when that day comes around. So I'm looking forward to that, because it'll feel like home.
You like tight spaces?
Yeah.
A little curl up?
I'm broken. I'm indoctrinated. Like, it's like, all right, just give me close quarters, please. I want to have to completely touch another person as we both squeeze by each other side by side in a passageway. That's what I need. If I don't have that, then I'm unhappy. Anyway, just a reference there of like kind of how we view the Star Citizen thing. I immediately popped in my head while I was watching Inside Star Citizen today. If you guys haven't watched the episode, I highly recommend you check it out.
Oh gosh, it's so good.
It's excellent. I think they've it looks to me like maybe they've adjusted crew size to be a little bit more manageable, which I think is good.
Yeah, so one thing that we didn't have with the Polaris is, and after this I'm going to get us reined back in, but two things. With the Polaris original concept, one of the selling points is that it was designed to have more creature comforts and be comfortable, compared to more Navy ships. So if you go back and like read the Polaris brochure, they do talk about that. But at the same time, I totally get what you're talking about, because it as far as how much interior space it has, like, it looks galaxy comfortable, Carrack level comfortability, and I'm like, I get that it
has a pool table.
It has a
Do
pool
you have
table.
a pool table on your submarine?
No, that's not a thing. That's not a thing.
There was none of those things on any of the Navy ships I ever was stationed on.
I mean,
I don't. Maybe in officer country, there's things that I'm not aware of. Yeah.
Anything smaller than an aircraft carrier, like a frigate, even a destroyer, and then basically what we call small boys. Like, anything in that world, there's no way in hell.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, having spent a lot of time on the Gator Navy, we were always on the green side of the ship. We were always very jealous of the creature comforts that the blue side of the ship had. And they're like, well, we actually live on this ship, not just, for a couple of weeks or months at a time. This is where you live.
Yeah.
And so
it's my home.
But like, the Navy guys have very little room. The Marines would literally get jammed on board, and there's very little room. And so the Polaris is definitely very comfortable, but I can also see that part of that is, okay, they have to make room for NPCs to move around, and the NPCs have to be able to walk around and function, and they're not as smart as the smartest player, hopefully smarter than the dumbest player. but they do have to be able to move around, and so that immediately makes for larger passageways, which means that you end up having a little bit more room here and there just to accommodate those things. And but yeah, I'm from what we've seen of the interior of like the Idris is, even though it's still quite spacious. The Idris is a little bit more familiar to me, but I think it's more of these are gameplay limitations. But I totally agree with you, Nightcob. It is spacious, so
Well, I
spacious.
feel like the Idris. I mean, most of that ship is hangar,
Yeah,
and
a lot.
everything else is just tacked on around the hangar. Like,
Mhm.
it doesn't look
Yep.
like there's going to be any creature comforts on that per se. But I saw someone in chat say it's RSI after all creature comfort. That may be true,
Mhm.
and different manufacturers go at it from a different perspective. So
But now that we have called our audible, I'm going to reel us back in.
Yeah. Take that.
Yes.
That's what you get.
But our main, well, and it's relevant though.
It is.
And
it's a really nice rework. I think it'll be nice.
ooh,
Now,
so
if they'll
good.
just make it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's not
After
get started
it's
on
going to
that
happen
conversation.
after the Galaxy.
No.
That's my bet.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Well,
because I think the Galaxy will
immediately
set
after.
the tone for new RSI shape language for large ships.
Yeah.
Whether we like it or not. And I see Nightcob because I know you've seen all the other creators out there talk about it. So we
I've
don't
got
have to talk about it here.
Got a big old long video on that. Go to my YouTube, go watch it. Yeah. Nazareth and I beat that horse to death. But today, first and foremost, we because we were we started the Galaxy just came out as a release concept ship. And hopefully it is going into production like the leaks said it was. All the leaks on the Galaxy have so far been accurate. So we'll see with this next roadmap update if it's actually going into production or not. But the Galaxy is the first modular ship that's been introduced by CIG in quite a while. Gosh, I can't even remember which one was the last one. If you can remember in chat, let us know. But we thought, hey, let's talk about modularity. Because everybody looks at the modular ships and like, oh, this is cool. I'll be able to swap out these things and do a whole bunch of stuff. It'll be a Swiss Army knife. And I think that we all agreed that there's a lot more to modularity that players might want to consider, especially before investing in more expensive modular ships. Like the Galaxy is pretty reasonable for its size, but the Endeavor is going to get a price increase eventually. That's another modular ship. In either way, these ships, some of these ships are hundreds of dollars. The Retaliator is probably like the cheapest modular ship. And so we thought we would talk about modularity and the ins and outs of modularity, and then do a little bit of speculation about it as well. So we, in order to sort of preface this conversation, back during the original stretch goals, way back when, the $65 million stretch goal, the very last one, was enhanced ship modularity. And so I'm going to pull up the link real quick, and I'll just read a couple bits of it at the end. There we go. And it's just so you have the ship of your dreams, but really wish that it could be customized to suit your needs a bit more than the off-the-shelf models. This new goal, a massive undertaking, is going to be of interest. We are looking to overhaul any suitable ships, including the Cutlass, Avenger, Retaliator, and Redeemer, to allow many modular components to be available as swap outs.
Cutlass, really?
Yeah. But remember, this is from a much different time, so take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
And they have
Just
one
take
of the
that
other
bulkhead
links
out.
Well, one of the other links that I put in our show notes,
Not a big deal.
and I'm gonna go ahead and drop these let's see, links in the chat so you guys can follow along with what we're talking about.
You want me to read the summary? You talking about the
I want that link.
the modularity discussion?
I'm just
'Cause
gonna
I got
drop
that
these
up.
links in chat, and then And there's also a series of posts that CIG did that I always like to go back to, which is the shipyard posts, where they cover a whole bunch of things. When they first came out with the Matrix of Lies, they prefaced all the information that's in it with all these shipyard posts. And the Matrix of Lies is very unreliable, but the information in the shipyard posts has really done a good job of standing the test of time. And you can go read all of them by clicking the little links in the article. But the one of note today is the shipyard post on variants and modules. And so we whenever we're preparing for these episodes, thank you, perfect. Yeah, I was about to nailed it. Whenever we're preparing for these episodes, we always come up with some talking points and things that questions that we have that we think are things that we are considering that we want to make sure everybody else is considering as well, or at least batting around. But then we also come up with some ideas that we come up with. And to start this off, I'm gonna do. I kind of like the Paul Shelley Astropub method of bouncing these questions off of the guys below and letting it go from there. But I'm also going to keep each section to try and keep it to about an hour or so we're not running over for too long. But Night Cobb, I wanted to see what you guys have to say about the cost, not of the module itself, because we know that we'll be able to buy them in game. You can buy them with real money now, but eventually you'll be able to buy them in game. But not only how much do you think modules will cost, but how much do you think it will cost to change them out?
So I'm hoping they're appropriate costs. I'll be honest with you. I know I've struggled with a lot of people when you look at US dollar or currency equivalent cost of a ship.
I want you to put it in Iraqi dinar from circa 2003.
That's about like UEC.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not
I don't know.
off.
God, you're asking me to do mental math, and I don't know what's the value of the yen right now. I'm gonna need a spreadsheet. No. So what I look at is what we have for the military that I'm aware of, or at least that I deal with. The only big modular things that we have in the submarine force are vertical payload tubes, which you can basically substitute out for vertical launch systems on board the newer Virginia-class submarines. And that allows some form of modularity. And then you've got logistic escape trunks that can be modularized in forms of like special operations forces or soft deployment. So different style of modules and what we're talking about, right? CIG is going kind of like the industrial route, and then the military modules seem highly specialized to the ship, which is what I expect. But those are not inexpensive things, and they are not small things to change out. So what I hope they get right is it is an appreciable cost, and it's a very appreciable cost to change one out at, say, like Cousin Crows. Like, it should not be a small thing that you are changing out a module in a spaceship to maintain hull integrity, to give immersion to the sense that what you're doing is you're basically executing a really, really big ship alteration. Granted, it is approved and it's designed to be done. It should cost you money and it should cost you time. And I hope that that's reflected to some degree. Because I think I like that level of immersion. If you're going to make me sit in a 2-minute elevator ride, I like the idea that I might have to have a ship down in Cousin Crows for the better part of a game day to get an entire module for a near capital class ship changed out. That's not a small deal for a bunch of people to do.
Especially if it's scales based off of size, like between the Retaliator and the Galaxy.
Yeah.
And it
should be one thing for the Galaxy and another thing for like an Avenger Titan to swap out its like cargo bay area. I agree with that. So time commensurate with size.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, time
and money
commensurate with size.
Because you're probably also paying a good amount of labor costs. And I wouldn't I mean that the money will is essentially simulating labor costs for someone to do the work. And I think that's a good. It kind of makes sense that Cousin Crows is at Crusader because they have those open air shipyards, in order to reduce costs. Because you don't have to be in a spacesuit, in vacuum floating around to work on a ship. I think that makes a lot of sense to have Cousin Crows there for that kind of work to be done. I hope that we'll see other. Well, that's another question. And before I ask what your thoughts are, Attira, I also wanted to preface this. As I talked about it on Paul's podcast, there's two major blockers to modularity coming into the game. One is that the people who are working on persistent entity streaming and by extension server meshing, but really it's a PES limitation. They have to do work on the item port system in ship object containers. Ships are built in pieces that are stuck together. And so they have to make it so that way when the ship object container for a module streams out when you're replacing with something else, that it takes its item ports with it. So for example, the Retaliator, if you're taking the torpedo module out and you replacing it with a dropship module, right now the way it works, those torpedo item ports are attached to the ship and not to that module, not to that object container that the module is. And so you stream that out, the item ports are still there, and so you go to get in the dropship, and then all of a sudden, the pilot, lands at a station, clicks reload or rearm, and all of a sudden you've got torpedoes falling into your lap in the dropship seats. That's an example that John Crew used. So there's that work that has to be done. They've done what they needed to make it work for Squadron 42. They just need a little bit of work in order to refactor that system to make it work for the older ships that are supposed to be modular, like the Retaliator. That's why the Retaliator got its gold standard work. At the same time, they're doing what's called OC room swapping, object container room swapping for the Retaliator. It's on the progress tracker. The other bit of work that has to be done is the modules have to be able to plug and play into the resource network. So if you swap a module out, it has to be able to get power, and based off whatever item ports are in that module, like its function, it has to maybe get coolant, power, and it has to be able to have gravity and atmosphere. It has to, your atmospheric scrubbers, whatever, how that works, that all has to work as we're swapping out the modules. And so that was the other thing that John Crew talked about in a recent SCL in the last several months. So, but they're doing that work now. That's the thing, is the blockers are essentially either being worked on or nearly done. The backend tech blocker is essentially going to be done here very shortly. And the resource management, resource network blocker, if you go look at the progress tracker, CIG is all hands on deck on the ship content teams on two things: resource management and the Squadron 42 gold standards, the gold standard work, the vehicle support for Squadron 42. So, there's that. Attira, what are your thoughts on the cost of modularity? As far as buying the modules, as far as being able to swap them out. What are your thoughts?
Hey, all right. Glad to be here.
He's got notes.
No, I was just thinking about some of my recent experience in my real life job, and I'm going to apply it to this conversation.
Ooh.
So, one, I don't know that we can even predict what it's going to cost. We have no idea. The prices aren't fixed in game. Everything, we don't know what professions are going to earn. We don't know what additional money sinks we're going to have eventually, and we don't I don't think we have a good picture of what ships are going to cost. If I were to speculate right now what it might cost, a module they'll be prorated based on function, right? So I think the most useful is the medical, right? And you're purchasing and installing tier 1 through 3 beds, which are going to be expensive. And I think that's going to be 75, maybe 750,000. If I were to just guess off the top of my head, refinery, less, another complex piece of equipment, probably 600, and then cargo, maybe less, 250,000. I mean, cargo is just an open space with a gravity cargo grid on it, right? It's nothing really special. Some cranes.
The only other thing is the tractor beam cranes, but yeah, compared to the med beds and the refineries, for sure.
Yeah, high-end technology assigned with those, it just doesn't seem that big. So that's what I think it would cost to buy. I would say I don't know that Cousin Crows is the greatest place to do it, because Cousin Crows, you're not in a zero-G environment, and I think moving around gigantic hunks of metal in gravity is still taking a risk.
I
Whereas
thought
if
it was
Cousin
close
Crows,
to. I thought it was near close to, though. That's like why they picked that area to develop the
it's
Hercules.
close and it's going to save on energy. I think they would do even better if they were doing it in space, where they could just kind of go pink and it would shift a little bit, and then
I do think that we're going to see a lot of differentiation between, because like RSI's big capital class shipyards are out in space at a Lagrange point.
yeah, and I think
and-
that's where this
Yeah.
kind of activity should take place. And I see somebody in the chat, Cousin Crows, is customization. Standard shops should be able to swap modules. I don't know about standard shops. I
Yeah.
agree
It's
with
specialty
NICOB that
work
this
for sure.
is a pretty big deal. It's a major structural change, but I think it would take place at a Lagrange point where you have stability and you can move these things around with tractors and very precisely kind of control their movement, versus in gravity, where if you screw up, it just, it can fall, even if it's just a little bit. I mean, that's kind of interesting. Anyway, the next piece I'm going to say is when you talk about the speed at which, the rapidity at which these can be installed. So I got to tour a very interesting, I'm not going to plug them, manufacturing line a week and a half ago. And it would be ironic if one of them was watching this or saw this, but okay. So
Don't get
they
yourself in trouble.
no. They would just recognize who I'm talking about. So they're the only one kind of in the industry that does this. So they have a bunch of F1 Formula One fans, and they took some lessons learned from Formula One, and they're building their product with the same type of attach and detach capability as a lot of F1. So if you see, like, if a bumper gets rocked right on a wall in an F1 race and they pull into the pit, they will literally push in and lift off, right? It's just a catch, the bumper or the front wing. They'll throw it aside. They'll pop on another wing. Any electricals that are in there, any fluids that are in, all have quick release, quick catch sockets, and it just goes right in, done, boom, instantly reintegrated into the system. And so they are, it's all quick release, absolutely. So they're instituting the same thing for assembly, disassembly of this potentially, maybe one day, tactical system. And I would call, something that has to be assembled and disassembled on the battlefield rapidly, and go off and achieve its mission. And so you pull out of the box, you do all this, everything, fuel tanks are in the wings, you freaking plug it in, it quick latches, and away you go, next part. So all that complicated bullshit is to say, I would imagine 900 years in the future, and if they're not thinking this way, they're silly, for some things like this, right? I mean, this is going to be purpose built with some type of integrated quick attachment system. So as this module slides into place, right, on rails, right, nice and slow, it's gonna have to sync up with pre-built power, pre-built oxygen connections, pre-built everything. So I don't think it's gonna take too long to necessarily exchange these things. I think the most would be laying in the welding on the exterior hull plates and making sure that it was secure in place. And you're nodding your head, and I know you're like, I know what I'm, all about that. But 900 years in the future, we don't know what we're going to be able to do. And
it's an efficiency thing, though. Like, I'm with Tree in the sense that, don't get me wrong, I'm with you on some parts of this. Like, I would hope that we're better about putting things on rails. The honestly, I actually think the hull welding thing should be the easy part and stuff like that, because modules should be designed to be roughly the same size, take up the same slot, so to speak.
Mass,
But the
balance,
problem,
everything.
yeah, exactly. But the problem, I think, is actually more related to power couplings, the relay network, the efficiency by which you direct power. Like everything, every foot of cable has a cost. You lose efficiency to a component based on more cabling, based on where you're directing that power. And I know you're talking about like, okay, well, we'll design the efficiencies to uh, support that modularity. But the truth of the matter is, and kind of in relation to your example, right? Similar modules require less adjustment for that same efficiency and the same cable routing. But when you're talking about grossly different modules, like it's one thing to say, all right, I've got a module and it's geared for, just a slight variation in weapon configuration or a slight variation in the torpedoes that I'm using, or a slight variation in the even the medical. Like it'd be one thing if you're like, all right, I'm switching out a module from a tier 1 bed to 2 tier 2 beds. Okay, well the function is still, I have the similar power requirements and similar logistical requirements for medical. When you
Right.
say, okay, I'm going to switch out an entire module that is dedicated to medical for a module that is dedicated to a refinery, all right, well, now you're talking about an entirely different power setup. You're talking about different cable ratings. You're talking about different relays, because you have vastly different components in that module. And although it might be easy to slide that module in structurally, like you are essentially talking about retuning the ship to support the new module, and that's
Yeah.
what you have to adjust for. So that's kind of like the module thing that I think they're going with. That idea is like, oh, it's an entirely new ship now, it's an entirely new purpose. Well, even in the military, we don't do that. It's not like I say, you know what, that's a military frigate right there, but if I just take that section of the ship out, I can make it a medical frigate. Like, no. What you're doing is basically at the modularity level, if you're doing that kind of stuff, is like, okay, it's geared toward this type of mission that's delivering, uh,
Yeah, modules
Tomahawk
on
cruise
Navy ships
missiles.
are mission modules. They're not
Exactly.
converting the entire ship's function.
Yeah.
So
Because that would be a
I
big
guess
deal.
my point is though, is and one of the things I'm having to is there has to be some gamification of this, right? So
Well, yeah.
right, and so I think Jared said it. When did he say this? It was right at the start of the IAE ship talk, whatever they called that video. You take it all the way as real as you can, and then you dial it back to fun, right?
Yeah.
And I think
Right.
all
So
of
it's
that
not like
is
we're going to be doing that work. I think the gamification is in the how long does it take and how much does it
How much
cost.
does it cost?
right. And so in that regard, if we were going to talk, expect modules to be swapped out, I would say like a refinery module, which is clearly going to have just an extreme power draw capability. It may not when it's idle, but when it's at max, it's going to be drawing a lot of power.
Yeah.
That might take the longest to install, because again, that takes into account everything Shree's Nikop's talking about. So you gotta account for the wiring and adjust the power output of the freaking
Flux capacitor.
power plant, the capacitors, right? And maybe you have to install industrial capacitors in an industrial size 3 power plant to account for the power draw of the refinery. And then maybe a combat module will handle everything else. And I think that would be fine.
Yeah, and I think from that standpoint, I agree with you that the cost commensurate with size would be not only commensurate with size but function. So
Right.
the cargo module, that's probably the cheapest. You need 2 tractor beam looking things, at least based on the concept art, and other than that,
Barely
it's just
any
space.
power requirements. Yeah.
Yeah, barely any power requirements. And then you get into medical. Okay, that's kind of a highly specialized thing that's going to cost you money. Honestly, I look at the refinery as like that's probably the most expensive one. That's it's not even
I
just
guess
that
it
you have
depends on
enough
what
power.
I think
It's
it depends on
specific
what
power.
they say about. Yeah, it is specific power, but like gosh, I mean, you're a floating respawn point,
Well,
with those
well, so
two
you're paying
beds.
for function at that point in time, and don't be wrong, the function is what very useful. But I mean, honestly, like I look at it from a standpoint of like how much is it to tool a cargo space into a space that just powers some medical beds on a low power function? Whereas if you're talking about reactors, because they keep using that term when they talk about refineries, which
Ah,
don't get me
Hmm.
wrong,
yeah,
gets me interested. But when we talk about refining and like the high temperature, high pressure
yeah.
style environments that we're talking about, my brain goes back to like nuclear reactors and what's required for that. That's not a small deal. You have to it's not even just enough to say, okay, well, I've got cableways and I've got relay networks that support high power, high pressure, high temperature operations. That stuff has to be shielded. That stuff has to be precise,
But that would
I
and
t-
that
did
I,
costs
find
a
wouldn't
it.
lot of
wouldn't
money.
wouldn't all of that come with the module though?
It would,
All
but
that
then you have to tool the ship's power output to deal with that kind of stuff.
right, and that's where I think they could get creative, right?
Hmm.
So maybe the only power plants that can power a refinery module is an industrial power plant,
I think that would be a great idea, and I think that makes sense. And I would
and then
actually put a minimum tier for it too. Like anything less than a C is not going to cut it.
well, C is the lowest, so it would have to be like
It
industrial
would be
B.
kind of interesting if you could make it like
Oh, is it? I thought they
if
had
you
D.
had
Do
if
they have
you
D?
had one that so
I thought they
that's
only had C,
actually
A, and B, CBA.
a good lead into our next question is the constraints for modules, for changing them, because the Galaxy is a large ship, and it has large power plants and everything, and that's a good potentially a good way of adding in trade-offs. Not only is the cost of modularity, you have to buy the module, you have to pay to have it installed or have them swapped out, but then if you are running a ship with a class C civilian power plant, and you go from having a cargo module to the increased power requirements of the refinery module, because that makes a lot of sense that a refinery module would consume more power because it is hooked
Yeah.
up into the resource management system. It is These things are going to consume power. It's part of the prerequisite for it. um and I could totally see it where, okay, we have this new module in here, it's going to take more power, so you don't you can run everything, but you have in order to run it, and it means that it's drawing more power, so your shield recharge is lower, um your ability to refill your capacitor banks on your turrets is lower, because you have power dedicated to the refinery. And when you're not using it, you could shut, that's engineering gameplay. Okay, we're not in a refinery
Yeah, I was
operation
waiting
right
when we were going to
now.
bring that back in.
Yeah.
Well,
Back
I
to
if
like.
I
last
if I
week.
can
That's
if
what
I
I
could jump
expect.
in,
Yeah.
have you ever played the game Satisfactory?
Yeah, Satisfactory. And then
So you
I love
you
Colony
pulled up your
Sims.
power
So
plants, and you put up your power plants, and you run all your cabling, and it's just an absolute mess. And then you put down one miner or one refinery too many, and the whole system
mhm.
shuts down, right? Because you're overtaxing your power supply.
Yeah.
So if you once you turn that, it could be when you talk about refining mini games as a part of this modular setup, right? And maybe you only have to worry about it really in the refinery because that's the only thing that's, as you say, reactors and all this other stuff. But the engineer is constantly balancing power, and if you suddenly have, maybe the shields can't be on while you're refining, or maybe they only charge you
Yeah.
50%, and if you
Yeah.
maybe you have to adjust your power on the ship to account for full production, or maybe it's just it produces and refines slower, right? And so as you go up in tier of industrial uh, power plants that can produce more power, and industrial capacitors which can manage that power flow, right? Then you have a lot more leeway with how much power you can put into it versus shields versus weapons versus everything else. And I think that would, and then I don't know, I assume they're going to have like military, industrial grade, civilian grade relays.
Yeah.
So maybe
Or at the very
you would,
least subcomponents. Very least subcomponents.
Yeah.
yeah,
Like
so you
for
might,
your power plant.
yeah, so then you could go in and plug in either your subcomponents for or your relays for managing that level of power. And I don't know, maybe they're not maybe the industrial ones aren't as shielded. They allow you to emit a little bit more energy. The military
No,
ones are a little bit more protected against EMP. I mean, who knows? I don't know. However they want to balance that shit, but
I'll
and if
offer an
you
opinion real quick on that because I agree with you. And I know this is theory crafting, and I don't want to dive too much into theory crafting, but if just in case anybody's like listening to this or listens to it later, I hope that's how it goes. Industrial should focus on efficiency. That's what industrial and maybe civilian to a degree uh, have always been about, right? That's what you expect. Whereas military is hardened components. They are geared to survive battle damage. So I would always expect like that would be the trade-off. Like you want military grade components and subcomponents. Well, they're going to be a little bit more hardened against, um, like things like distortion damage and just damage in general. But man, industrial, it's all about the efficiency, and you're going to sacrifice that hardening for efficiency because always trying to be cost effective.
Yeah.
I want to be
right,
able to run the refinery for longer at peak output while consuming the least amount of hydrogen fuel via my power plant. That makes sense, and that should just. It seems diegetic to me that that's how they would go. I don't know if they've thought about it, but that's what I would expect. And obviously, they just haven't gotten that far in terms of like component. What's the word I'm looking for? Um,
specificity,
diversification. Yeah,
diversification. Yeah,
diversification. Yeah, but I hope that that's where they're going. Um, so I agree with you, and the modules should live up to a similar specification. I would expect the moment you swap in a refinery module, just expect that you've lost a lot of hardening for your ship in terms of the areas that those components are located in. Like, so they're more susceptible to damage and distortion damage, and those fuses are going to blow easier. And that relay network is now more susceptible to damage, but your power plant is now potentially more efficient if you have the right power plant, like military hardening mixed with industrial grade components. That I would hope that they build it so that doesn't necessarily mix that well, and maybe you lose some efficiency, or maybe you gain efficiency with the more industrial you go with in terms of components.
yeah.
And again, that's engineer gameplay. Like I'm hoping there will be players to be like, yeah, Captain, we can switch to that refining module. Here's what we're going to need to go buy if we want to be any kind of efficient out in the black with regards to components. I've already done the research. These are the components, the subcomponents that we need, and this is where engineers make their money.
Yep.
And I look forward to that style of gameplay. I know that's theory
Well, that
crafting,
would
but
that
that's
would
what I
fall
hope.
right in line with what they've done for mining,
Yeah,
right? I mean, and I think that would be only I would say that with mining they miss the mark because some components that they put in and some components are absolutely useless, and
Yeah.
other components are almost always used. So you'd
Well,
have to
There's a lot of
actually,
balancing to do still, but
yeah,
I like that there does seem to be they're adding the ingredients in order to create a system of trade-offs, of pros versus cons,
yeah.
of decision making, instead of just decision making based off of your own priorities, or what you're caring about. Because the scenario that popped up in my head, and this popped up after watching the last little Jax McCleary video, was the Corsair got hit by probably one of the pyro flares. Something essentially knocked it out. The Corsair's shields weren't running because it's in quantum, and so it got hit by a pyro flare and got disabled. Well, if you are in your galaxy and you have the refinery module, and you are doing some refining
I like your
for
verb.
nice. Yep.
yeah,
Yeah, I like the verb.
write that
That's
down.
good.
It's new. But if you're doing
Refining,
some
refining.
refining,
I like refining better.
yeah, refining. It's more refined.
Yeah,
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
I'm down.
But if you're the Akiro cluster in Pyro is supposed to have been mined of the easy to get to stuff, but there are still supposedly very valuable minerals and materials there. So people are going to be mining in the Akiro cluster in Pyro. And if you've staged your galaxy somewhere nearby where your miners can go back to it and get stuff refined, well, okay, now a flare comes along. The big wave of whatever that damages your ship or knocks out relays or what have you. And you're in the middle of a refining job, and you've got a civilian power plant, and you're like, I don't know if we have enough can you shut down that refining job in order to divert the power to shields so that way you don't take damage, lose relays.
Not
That's
if you're
the
doing
kind of,
quantum.
yeah, oh gosh, that's the, if you're, can you sustain, what would be the impact on your quantum speed, because you need power in order to generate that quantum field. If you're trying to run your refinery at the same time, can you even do that? Can you generate enough power to, to do all that? And that's Night Cobb, like you were saying, the engineering gameplay, the decisions, hey, Captain, we can't do that, or we can do this, but not quite this, and that's the decision making that it seems like they are working towards, and that they've hinted at a lot in the past. But it's really fun and engaging to think about, especially when they have all this evidence that that's what it's going to be. It isn't going to be a super simple arcadey process.
And I think if I can just jump in before we go
Sure.
too far away from this, they also should have components that add shielding
Mm-hmm.
or stability or whatever you want to call it. So if you're doing something industrial,
Don't spoil it. We're going to get into that.
No, I know, but if you're no, this is on the same topic.
Okay.
If you're doing something industrial in a place, right? Then
Cheers, like I've looked at the show notes. I know what I'm doing.
I know what I'm doing. Let me alone. You could trade some of your efficiency of these subcomponents for instead stability or shielding, right? That then allow you to kind of operate a little bit more safely. So if you're in Pyro and you're going to be mining in a place where flares are likely or flares are going to impact you, you might put one of these things in each of your subcomponents so that you have a little bit more chance of surviving without losing everything, right?
Yeah, you
And
might
then,
want
or
to
two,
reconfigure more than just the module.
Right. Yeah, you're not just reconfiguring the module, you're ship to operate in that area, and depending on what you're going to do, and you might choose to run with those all the time in Pyro, because you never know when something. But the second you head back into Stanton to go pwn noobs, right, you're going to change all that out for high performance mods that allow you to do that, because you're not worried about flares anymore. So that's another piece of that, because you should be able to account for that at the cost of something else. So instead of having that Brant module that gives you that 2% more green, instead, right, you have I think that's the Brant module. You have one subcomponent that is focused on just stability in case a flare hits or some type of lightning strike or something. It insulates your ship a little bit better and the components therein. So.
One more question, and then I'm gonna preface this now because I want you guys to be thinking about it while you're answering this question, because it's a shorter one. We came up with ideas for different modules that we might see for the Galaxy, because they did say that they're going to be doing a manufacturing module and then others in the future. And so we kind of brainstormed a few that we thought might be interesting ideas. So I want you guys.
Some of these came from your community. Let's be clear.
Yeah. When I say we, I mean everyone. But I want you guys to pick the list that we have. Take a look at it and pick the one that you think is the most likely or that you like the most, and then tell us why here in a second. But before we do that, I just want to ask both of you guys, and I'll start with you, Night Cobb. Do you think that we'll have the ability to transport modules ourselves?
No, I don't think so. I kind of hope not, to be perfectly honest. Although it's kind of it puts you in a weird spot, right? So I get the idea of you buy a module from a certain location. I feel like it has to be from a place that's going to be able to support the installation of that module. At least logistically, it makes sense to me that way. Like, I just don't imagine that you're going to be, I mean, imagine the size of ship you're going to need to fly around one of the modules for the Galaxy.
Hull E.
Yeah, I get that. But I mean, like, that's also just like I mean, are you going to tear it down into pieces? I wouldn't expect it to go as one singular piece for a Galaxy.
That's another thing I saw the community talking about. They're talking about, would you like quarter it and then each of those quarters then goes into one of those the holy things, and then but then you get into it right night, and you said you got to put that thing back together.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
That's
here's what I
yeah.
think. I think it's going to be gamification. So and it's going to be similar to the ship claim. That's honestly what I think. It's going to be ship claim, like just for module. So maybe you can request it at a landing zone, and then, God, I forget the ship. What's the ship that delivers the ships? They've already got it in lore. It's not
The
concepted
it's
or
the
anything. Jupiter.
Jupiter.
Oh, the Jupiter.
Yeah, the Jupiter.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and some Jupiter I can see being as like the craft in the background that brings it to whatever place you're at. And maybe then, if it's a landing zone that's got a place that can support the installation, okay, you can do that. And that's why, all right, well, I can claim it at this particular location. And then I can go down to the local, I'm going to say Cousin Crows simply because we don't have other options yet, but like
Yeah.
local Cousin Crows to install this module if I'm not residing in the system. But that's a long way off.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, I see it though as it's going to be gamification. I don't think you're ever going to be able to transport it because it's going to be a separate entity I just don't ever see being physicalized. And I
It's
don't
gonna
see
be
a reason why
Quanta.
they would physicalize. Yeah, it'll be
It's gonna be
Quanta
Quanta.
basically doing it.
Yeah. Yo, and
Mhm.
and I saw another. I was paying attention to the comments on this question. I don't know why. Like all this week, somebody else was saying like if a pirate, like an NPC pirate or a player pirate, intercepts by chance the Quanta that is carrying your thing,
Mhm.
then you just get a note on the terminal that says experiencing delays. We apologize. It just takes longer
Your
for it to
package
get
has
there.
been lost in transit.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
the Quanta got intercepted, and
Your
you
package that cost
yeah
hundreds of thousands of UEC got lost in transit because we took a shortcut and shipped it through Pyro.
yeah
Yeah.
it's entirely possible. So
Yeah.
somebody said Voyager Direct. I don't know if that,
Well, and
but
Blizzbrad
I
makes a good
definitely
point because like the Galaxy modules are huge. Like the the cargo module for the Galaxy holds 500 some odd SCU itself, and that doesn't even take up the whole thing. Like there's a lot of space left over. So
It's an
those
awkward shape
modules,
too.
yeah, those
yeah
modules are ginormous. Well, then you've got
Yeah.
like the Endeavor. How does the Endeavor? There's no way you can move the Endeavor modules around without some sort of specialized thing to do it. And so that's why, like with the Cousin Crows makes the Kraken conversion into the privateer. That's what they do. Is they not only do customization of your little ships, but they also do the installation of these customization options, like modularity. And so that's what, like, I kind of agree with you, Nightcob. I think it's probably going to upset a bunch of players in that, oh, how come I can't just load it up in my ship and transport it? Because it's massive, and
Yeah.
how would you, okay, well, they would just take it apart and put it into, 64 SCU containers, and ship it. Okay, that's still a whole bunch of those things,
Yeah.
that, you're talking about the amount of work to disassemble that module. It's
Not only that, but what happens if you get interdicted and a pirate like shows up and like, now they got like a soft F moment or, whatever it's up being in the future. And it's
yeah.
like, well, do those pieces, they steal half of it. What are you left with?
Hmm.
claim
You
it.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, and then at that point, you're kind of like, what was the point of this game? Cool. I could have shipped it, but I mean, I had to break it down, and and I don't blame them. That just feels like, okay, well, we've got to be reasonable about this, and that makes
Yeah.
sense to me. Like, just
No,
Jupiter it, and we already Jupiter the ships. It doesn't make sense. I don't think or at least not any day, anytime soon, is ever going to be the gameplay for a Jupiter pilot to be transporting ships on insurance claims for players. I just don't
give
see that
Jupiter.
happening.
Yeah.
Give Jupiter.
It'll happen
No.
it'll happen in the background,
Listen,
and
30 years
things will
from
go
now, my
poof.
kids can tell me about the Jupiter.
Jupiter. I
Yeah.
do think though, but for Alpha, I do think they will insert as a component, and I think that
Yeah.
when they do institute some type of quanta based transportation to get it from point A to point B, and then you have to install it, and you have to install it at a special location for a price. I think then you'll see a lot of people get butt hurt and angry, but it'll be like, but okay, this is they've taken it up to real, and they are going to bring it back a little bit, but they're still going to they have to have money sinks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
right?
that's
So
a good money
this is
sink.
going to be a money sink, is like, they kind of, because, and also CIG is a little weird on this, because they're like, you want to be this one day, then you want to be this the other day. That's modularity. Okay, but if all of that's
But
free, right, then what are we spending our money on? We already have very little to spend millions and millions of credits on that we can earn in game.
That's
So
such a separate conversation, though.
that's,
I
well,
do
it
want to talk.
is.
Let's talk about money sinks one day. Let's put that down in a note.
Yeah, but
write
that, the
that down.
idea of paying a quanta to bring your thing to you, right, and then paying another quanta to install that for you, and it's not going to be immediate. You are going to have to plan your gameplay sessions, right? Hey, the Oregon's going to go mine next week on Saturday. Who's that asshole with the Galaxy? Okay, you get that into freaking Cousin Crows or whoever, get that module changed out, and be ready to go. Okay, Roger, okay, I went and did that. Now I'm going to wait a week and go do something else in the game while that's happening. And then, okay, hey, it's Saturday, it's go time, let's go. That's not a hard plan to execute. It's just going to take a little thought. If you don't do it, you don't get it.
And it's the
right?
primary game loop. Planning is the primary game loop. It is the
Mhm.
primary game loop of Star Citizen. I love it. All I want now, once they get it to that level, is I need a little app on my phone to like show me the timer on how much longer in Cousin Crows and stuff like that. That's what I want.
Yeah, so it
I want
goes.
push
Your phone goes
notifications.
ding or beeps like a microwave to let you
Yeah,
know
I want
your
push
Galaxy is
notifications
ready.
that Cousin Crows is done with my Galaxy. Like that's what I want.
Well,
Get me
yeah,
there, and
it's
I'm
just like if you
down.
take your truck to the dealership to have maintenance done
Yeah,
or have an upgrade put on.
No. When you're in game, you need to get a phone call on your Moby, right?
Yeah.
You hit accept, and they get somebody to voice act. Hey, you're this is Cousin Crows. You're ready.
It's got to
Bye
be like a
bye. And then
guy.
it hangs up.
Like
That would be
it's got to be like a
intense.
gamified version of one of those guys that does like the all the different custom reality TV shows where they customize cars and motorcycles or boats or whatever. It has to be
Am I
one of
right?
those
Oh,
guys.
another stereotype.
Yeah, it has to be a total stereotype of the guy who would be behind the counter, working at Cousin Crow's. Hey man,
See, but I
we
go
got your
the other
Galaxy
way.
ready, and there's a few hiccups, but we got it taken care of. I think you're gonna be really happy with what we got going on for you.
See, but I go the other way. I'm from Alabama, right? You just got this grease monkey mechanic who's covered in motor oil and grease. His hands are filthy. He picks up the phone. He calls you, hey man, your car's ready. All right, I'll see you in an hour. Click.
Yeah, maybe there'll be different types of places. Like that'll be the one in
Yeah.
Magnus, in Borea. The crappy city where Drake is headquartered. It's going to be just a poor grease monkey doing that, and the Cousin
Robert
Crows
Post
is
says,
like the
the extra bolts are in a box in the trunk. We had some leftover parts.
There's always leftover parts.
That's funny. That's
We put
good
it
one.
in a 1 SEU box. It's in your cargo hold. It'll be
So
fine.
while you guys frame the best module from the community ideas, I want to do a quick channel update. We sailed past our $200. Sorry, everything I do on my Twitch and my YouTube is for charity. And the impetus for that charity was the fact that all three of us are veterans. We're all military, and so I everything, all monetization from my YouTube and Twitch goes towards StackUp.org, and so you can donate directly to StackUp in order to support what they do. They hook up military members and veterans with video games and gaming communities in order to help treat PTSD, help currently serving people get through deployments, being away from friends and family. So it's a really great organization. I highly recommend giving them a follow on Twitch. They do a lot of fun gameplay streams and stuff. That being said, we had a $200 goal initially set for StackUp.org, and we blew through that. We met that goal on Tuesday during Pathfinder's podcast, and we just had a $5 donation earlier today from Reindeer Loan, I think it was. So thank you so much for the donation, and I have upped our goal for the Stack Up charity drive to $500. So we're at $205 on our way to $500. So if you want to donate to the cause directly, that's the way to do it. If you hate commercials and you still want to support stackup.org, you can subscribe to this channel. And when I get a payout from Twitch, I will take that money I haven't gotten a payout yet, but when I get a payout from Twitch, I will take that money and donate it to stackup.org. And that first payout, I need to put that goal on this OBS. So I think if I reach 15 subs on Twitch, especially doing it month to month, from when I started, we will hit our $50 minimum to request a payout, probably by the end of this year, beginning or towards the end of January, give or take. So if you don't want commercials, you can subscribe to the channel. That money will go towards the payout. When that money gets paid out, I will match that first payout with my own monies. And so we will give $50 of your money plus $50 of my money for a total of $100 directly to Stack Up. So that's what this channel is all about. That's why we do this, besides we enjoy it and it's fun. So that being said, Attira Kell, let's start with you. Which of the community suggestions modules in our list is your favorite? Which one do you want to see the most?
Can I deviate from that question real quick?
Sure.
Well, we got to talk about are you drinking your space beer tonight?
I don't have any space beer tonight.
Oh,
no.
Okay. Well, I'm drinking Blue Moon Haze.
Ooh.
All right, which is a hazy, juicy pale ale. It was okay. Nice. It was tolerable. I'm
not drinking space beer tonight.
Well, my second beer of the night is a double bock beer called Trojanator. Trojanator. I don't know. Shit.
Trojanator doesn't sound right. I hope it's Trojanator.
I hope it's Trojanator. Yeah. Anyway,
Trojan man.
There's still an R in there, man. There's still an R.
And then this is my Stein. It's going all wonky. But another Prague Stein.
Cool.
Yeah. Anyway, it's all behaving weird. I'll put it above my head. Does that work? Nope. Fuck it. Okay. All right. Anyway, beer. It's good. Space beer. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna deviate from the ones that I put in, because the ones that I put in are combat oriented, and they said we're not going to get combat. Well, it's not a combat ship.
Mm-hmm.
Although I say with the idea of modularity, it could be just less effective than a pure manufactured combat ship. So it could be a Perseus competitor, but it would be a little less effective because you could do other stuff with it too. So that being the case, I will say, see, that's a bit derivative. All right, I'm going to say repair bay, because, right, we have the Vulcan.
You're looking at the third one on our list, right?
Yeah. Okay. Vehicle repair bay, right? So we have the Vulcan, and we have, what is the what's the big one?
Crucible.
Thank you. The Crucible. We have nothing in between that I'm aware of that strictly does repair. So what I would like to see is, instead of it being like a bay, it would actually be like the Crucible, in that it has lots of spindly arms. So you would just, as the ship, just pull up over the ship that needs repair. They would pull up under you, and then the arms would come down and do the work from the bay, and then all inside the bay is all the materials you would need for repair, right? So you'd have your salvaged, I don't know whatever they're going to call that, salvaged metal that you can then.
There's an acronym for it now. It's someone in chat remind us what that acronym is.
And you shoot the stuff out, and it bonds to the hull, and that's
RMC.
RMC. Yeah, you shoot the RMC out, and the RMC repairs. And then in theory, if it's you'd have additional storage for it's not going to be like capital class repair, right? But you could have size 1 and 2 components stacked up in your bay that you can then access with the arm, right? And then install into your exterior component fighters and smaller ships, right? And so, you You could do, and maybe it's 2 operators to work, and you can go a lot faster than, say, something like a drone, right? Which only has a little bit of fuel, and then you could also do some basic refueling with it because you're repairing it. You put some gas in the tank and you send them off on their way. It might be a step above what the Vulcan can do, and something like a early mid tier kind of repair capability.
Yeah, I really, especially because the the module on the Galaxy, the module space is open to to the bottom, and we know that for both the medical and the cargo, they've got a lift that goes down, so you could easily make a module that is like that, has that takes that lift space, and instead of having a lift, maybe it's a little bit wider or something. It opens it up so that way that arms can go down kind of like on the Crucible in order to do repair. And maybe because it's a module, it wouldn't be as efficient, um, you know, as far as cost of operating as the Crucible for providing repair services, but it lets you do that because it's modular. And I think it could look really cool, almost kind of creepy, because that thing would open up and had little crab legs or arms, coming out,
Yeah.
like some sort of
And there'd have to
weird
be
alien
some type of
crustacean.
hard dock functionality to it, so that kind of
Mhm.
what do we call it? The meshes kind of align and become one, and then so that stuff doesn't
Yeah.
go wonky and weird, and then you could
You could
go
have,
in and
some sort of like
do
grabby arms that fold down, create like a
sure.
gantry. Yeah, that'd
Yeah,
be cool.
and then you do your repair work, right? And then, maybe if there's a crap ton of damage or a bunch of components are on the bottom side of the ship and he docked on the top, maybe he has to undock, flip the ship over, and then like redock somehow. And there's like a special
Mhm.
mechanic for that, right? I don't know, but it allows you to kind of to get after that. It's weird, it's wonky, it's industrial, right? It's not combat because they don't want this to be a combat ship, and even though they clearly made a damn Star Destroyer. It's fine. Whatever. Fine. It's super aggressive in design, but they want it to be industrial. So, I mean, that's just an industrial thing they could do with it.
Mhm.
All right.
Cobb,
That's what I got.
did he steal yours, or do you have another one that you would really like?
No, I want manufacturing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's these rumors
What
that
would
the
you
ARG.
manufacture? What would you
I think
manufacture?
Oh.
I think it should be like. So here's. I know the. I don't want to get into the details of why necessarily, because that'll steal a lot more time. But they got those rumors and leaks of the Argo MCV.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which one is
And
that?
it's a
I
ground
will
vehicle.
find the description because it was.
Is it bigger than
Yeah, it's in a leak.
Is it bigger than the STV? So it's like
We know
PDV,
nothing
STV,
about
MTV?
it. Yeah.
Well, those are the gray cats. We're talking about the Argo.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah.
I'm looking in leaks to see if I can find the description, because all we got was the in-game description of it.
So
Okay. All right.
Well, so all that it really and it's not a very descriptive leak, but here's what I envision for manufacturing at the base level. The tier 0, tier 1 discussion before. I don't want to get into base building and all that kind of stuff. I think what they're going to find soon, like we talked about, is there's going to be a need for manufacturing the small things like subcomponents, and I would like to see that. The idea that you can manufacture the small things out in space based on people bringing, the necessary crafting materials to you, and you have some limited manufacturing that you could do out there. Honestly, I don't ever want to see this thing as a military ship. I really don't. One, it's got a gross weakness, and I love that about it, in the rear fire arc. Like, it has no defense back there, and I love that. I don't want this idea that everything has to be a military ship, or at least, yeah. What is the phrase they like to use? Punching above its weight class. Somebody's made a joke about that recently, but this thing should be mainly focused on any of the other game loops aside from military. Now, it should have some point defense. I think that's always a thing for a spaceship that's going to be operating out in the black. You have to have some kind of mitigating defense strategy. And don't be wrong, it's going to be real. It's going to be on the pilot if you ever come under fire. To be like, I have to keep them out of the rear of this ship, otherwise I am incredibly vulnerable. So I like the idea of a manufacturing module because I feel like it's got the space, to do some minor manufacturing, at a decent enough level. So I would kind of like to see that. And that's an interesting game loop that I would like to see addressed. Don't be wrong though, repair was second on my list. I like the idea of repair. That's all I got.
So I'll read the others, but we won't talk about it, just so everybody kind of has an idea.
Well, before you do that, I want to talk about
hurry up.
mine. It's my turn.
Oh no, you don't get to. You're the host.
No, you can't rush me. You don't get to. No. Listen here, you, sir.
Yeah, we're guests. We dictate how things run now.
I will let you read the other
Revolution!
ones that we noted, but one thing that I've always wanted is, because the way they describe the Galaxy as a support ship, I wanted a module for fleet support. And for that, like I want something where it sort of takes, and Drone Bay is one of the ones that we had, but I want drones that can transfer, munitions to a larger ship. So you've got, in your cargo hold for your Galaxy, torpedoes for a Polaris, and you need to get those torpedoes from a Polaris from your Galaxy's hold over to the Polaris, because you're out in deep space, maybe in Vandal territory or something like that, and you need to, essentially you're doing underway replenishment. I want a Galaxy module that does underway replenishment, whether they do it with drones or some other way. I think that the drone way was the best way to go, in that the drones can fly and you can have them grab onto something. So, you are able
not
to
as efficient as a Vulcan, but close.
More
it would
efficient
be
than a Vulcan.
It does what a
bigger
Vulcan
capability.
does for replenishment, as far as rearming, but bigger. So replenishing those large torpedoes for the larger ships by carrying them over, into.
Because you could pull from your own cargo hold in that case.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I think you'd almost have to. Half of it would be a
Yeah.
drone bay, half of it
Yeah.
would be cargo, and then you'd have the rear cargo as well.
If you've got, say, 4 drones, and they're all for moving large munitions to support your larger ship, whether it's crates of big bullets for your big turrets, or large missiles and torpedoes. It could be larger ships, it could be smaller ships, but have the capacity for those larger munitions that the Vulcan doesn't have the capacity for. Because the way they describe drones, if you want to learn more about drones, go watch our Pathfinders podcast, Droning On About Drones, because we talked about it in detail. But what drones are supposed to be able to do is they can grab onto anything that is a physicalized object and move it. So essentially they can take a missile from, the cargo hold of a Vulcan and fly it over to your Gladius and click it up onto the hard point. And so I want the ability to have the 2 drones click onto a box that is carrying the size 10 torpedo for a Polaris, and then fly it over the Polaris's cargo hold, and up it goes. And now the Polaris has, or however it goes about reloading, maybe there's a hatch that accesses because the Polaris has a torpedo room. There's 4 ready to fire in the tubes, and then there's like 24 more in the magazine that loads them. Well, if there's like a hatch that you can load up into the magazine on the Polaris, or even the Javelin, because the Javelin has size 12 torpedoes, I would like to see something that does stuff like that. Whether it's
that's going to
flying,
be longer than your cargo bay.
Yeah. Well, probably too big for the Galaxy, but for Polaris, or just crates of munitions, you've got
any size 9 or size 10
Yeah.
torpedo. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, being able to
size 9s aren't that big.
Fly those munitions from your cargo bay over to another ship, like even a Perseus. The bullets, the rounds on a size 7 cannon for those turrets on the Perseus, and you've got 4 of them, have got to be huge. And so you've got to be talking big, a lot of big crates of ammunition. Well, you get in a big scrape, and you need to replenish your ballistics because it is dedicated ballistics for now, and you're out in pyro, well, how do you go about rearming? Because we talked about this with logistics. I want a logistics support module, but really, you can put anything in there, but you use drones to move it to the other ship. And so whether it's, beans, bullets, or band-aids, I want that. We have drone bay in there, but I want drone
you want a
bay
logistical
specific.
support bay.
Yeah, similar to Vulcan, but without the refuel and repair. Because I think that would be, if they were going to do a repair module, it would be like what Attira was talking about, where it's specialized and it's closer to Crucible. Versus, this would be drone bay for logistical support. The rearming part of the Vulcan, not the refueling. I think if they did a refueling, it would be a separate module. More specific. Versus kind of like they have a refining module, but it isn't a refining and a mining module. There's no mining laser. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You're supporting one aspect of the game loop, not like several.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I got you.
But that's my idea, and I think Nightcobb, you were about to say something before I did mine, or was that you, Attira?
No, it was me.
Okay, go for it.
All right.
You're gonna read what we have on the list, right?
The list of the other things that we had. So we had Bounty Hunter Bay, which I said might include interdiction or quantum enforcement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or interdiction devices, right? And
Quantum
you automatically hate
quantum...
that, but it could be an interdiction support vessel, right? That just gives you a larger capability. You might have to rely on other ships
choice. Yeah.
You might have to rely on other ships to actually execute the takedown, but it could support that. Loads of cryotubes, right? So you just fill it up with frozen stiffs. The Explorer Bay, which would, it's not going to be a Carrack and it's not going to be an Odyssey, but it would be an attractive ship to fly around in the verse exploring things from, right? Because it is a pretty ship and you get to do fun things with it, right? And that kind of makes it like an all-purpose ship, almost like multi-role. So you might have a med bay, you'd have a scanning suite, you'd have some other stuff like that. We had drone bay, you added fleet support. I added just now science because I think Salty, a guy in my org, had said something about like it does RSI, and this ship in particular has a very attractive science look. The RSI lines are very clean and sterile, so it could be kind of like a science vessel, right? So mid-tier science vessel. And then for combat, because I know CIG doesn't want it to be combat, and now Nightcobb's going to get angry at me.
I'm not going to get angry.
You could create a torpedo bay in there, right? So that it doesn't have, all it is a shot torpedo thing, right? You could create and I only put this in there because a guy in the ammo Discord loves to say this a lot, and I don't necessarily agree with him, but I'm going to say it on his behalf. But some type of fleet support warfare ship, right? Understanding that all Navy vessels have EW capability like built into the vessel, right? Now you can't project that, right? Because you are where you are and you can only project basically to line of sight. That's why we have aircraft that are EW capable. But if you get within, line of sight, that EW is going to kick in for that ship defense, whether he's by himself or whether he's got a fleet. So with him. So every ship is its own EW protection suite. And I strongly encourage CIG to replicate that. Every capital ship should have a crew station that is focused on EW defense, protection, and attack, right?
They won't. That's a complicated business, though.
It is.
You know, as through your recent research, that requires highly specialized, trained individuals to execute EW.
I agree, and we got to figure out a way to gamify it because they already want to. They want to put EW in the game. They want to figure out a way to do it, right? So take inspiration from the video I'm going to release months when
I'm
I
looking
finally
forward to
get
that
it
video,
done.
but I'm gonna warn you now. I think they're just gonna replace that with hacking.
Which to me
Hacking
is
is gonna be
gross
the
because
game.
that's a completely different game loop.
I don't disagree with you, but unless you're an EW specialist or you've dealt with EW in the military, you don't understand the difference between the two. And likely the way to gamify that is to take hacking and kind of make that your EW warfare facsimile. Like that's what's going to be. I'm sorry. I'm just bracing you now for reality. That's all
Brace
I'm doing
me
this
now.
here.
Ah,
I
right.
appreciate you, and don't get me wrong. I love the idea of the EW warfare. It's just not going to be a thing. It's too
Maybe.
complicated a thing.
Yeah, maybe. I
Unless they've got
I hope
EW
you're
guys
wrong.
on staff. That's what you
I
need,
have several
essentially.
that would take significant pay increases if they were to get hired.
Yeah,
I'll
I got
send you their information, CIG. They would definitely take a pay raise to come over and talk to you about how to make that work. Okay.
That's a
And
lot
then the
of
other
that's a lot of interesting code they got to write. They're gonna have to talk to those DCS kids a little bit.
maybe that would be good. And then the other thing was just a straight up like combat module, so you could figure out a way to undersling some type of big gun, right? It's poorly thought out on my part, right? It would never be as effective as a Perseus, but it would be a modular combat ship, right? And with that would come components like another size 3 shield generator, probably another size 3 cooler, right? Something to make the ship more combat capable than it is, right? And I think actually for a lot of these things that we've talked about, they might come with an additional component or two as a part of the bay, or at least a slot for it. So if you install your industrial bay, you may be able to install an additional cooler to manage power regulate and power supply and stuff like that. I mean, we don't know how they're going to approach that, but that is a way they could do that. They could approach that. Like it comes with
It
some
could.
intrinsic components. And then you could extend that to combat, but I don't think they will. But that was just things that we all kind of came up
Yeah.
with. Yeah. All right. I think that was it.
Nikon, unless you have any closing remarks for modularity, if you guys are ready, we'll move into our second topic. This one will be a little bit shorter just because we don't have as much. And there's also a lot less from CIG on this. But it's something that we were thinking about.
No, I don't have anything else. I'm ready to move to the second topic.
Cool. So,
So frustrated with me right now. He's like, stop making it a combat ship.
No, not mad at him. I'm just sitting here like
I'm not mad. I'm just
fine.
disappointed.
I appreciate your EW conversation, and I'm sitting there and I'm just like, man, wouldn't it be nice? But it's just not gonna. That's not a thing.
I choose to have faith that someone
I
somewhere
understand.
will figure out a way to gamify jamming, and that's all we need.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great idea, and DCS has kind of got that going. But that's just when you start talking at the ship level, that becomes a whole new level of conversation. And I'm sure you've already figured that out in your interviews. Like that, yeah, I don't want to get into it. That's a military discussion for a different day.
Love it.
I just don't think
We'll put a pin in it.
I don't think that's feasible. Yeah, we can put a pin in it for now.
Put a pin in it.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, but I don't want to. I'm skirting a line. Probably already talking from the submarine community.
We don't want
Yeah,
to
let's talk about this.
line.
The second topic. Second topic.
Second
Let's move on
topic.
to
Let's
second
do
topic.
it right now.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop 2 links in chat from videos that I perused from CIG about this topic. And so that way you can kind of see where we're coming from. But the second topic, and it has I always enjoy coming up with clever names for our topics, but NPC crew, asset, or liability. Because there has always been a lot of discussion within the community about hiring NPC crew in order to crew your ship. And I don't need to make friends, or I hate playing with other players. I'm just going to hire NPC crew to crew my ship. And so we thought we would talk about, because that it's always interesting because those remarks come from people, and I'm like, oh, you have not spent much time managing people, and there's probably a good reason for it. But it's
like Attira.
It's
I've not spent a lot of time managing people.
Like I was trained early on in the Navy as a senior enlisted. Officers manage binders, chiefs senior enlisted, manage people.
Whoa, boy.
He's laughing because it's true. True, hence funny. That's why it's really funny.
I think that depends on the officer, but
Yeah.
I know. I'm picking at you. It's
I
not.
love
I
that.
actually don't believe the truth of it. You want to know? It's funny though because that was a senior officer who taught me that.
Oh, manages
They
binders.
would
That's
repeat
good.
it. They would repeat it on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, sometimes to junior officers when they'd be like, Have you talked to your chief yet? When you're talking to me about which people are going to do what? Because that's not your job. Your job is to manage a binder. Your chief will manage the people. So don't come to me unless you've talked to your chief. Anyway, that's a separate conversation. But
There you go.
that's where that joke came
Navy
from.
leadership. We would call that in the Army NCO business.
NCO
Yeah.
business.
Yeah. And those of us who are active leaders say,
I didn't mean to imply
enlisted,
you're not an active leader.
so-
It was a joke. It was a shameless,
I'm not an active
shameless
leader.
joke at your
I'm
expense.
I'm a liaison officer.
Oh.
Okay.
I have-
All right. Well,
I
now
have-
you've just gone. Now you've
I
just
have
gone and admitted it. All right. I
I
got
have
it now.
I have the best job in the Army right now.
Yeah, you're a people person.
I am a people person. Can't you tell?
Yeah, I know. I
Come
take
on.
the plans from the customers and I take them to the engineers. All
Take
right.
them to the engineers.
Yeah, I
I'm a
got it. I
people
know exactly what
person.
you do now. When you say you're a liaison officer, yeah, I
Oh,
know
God,
exactly what you do now.
That's my retirement gig, baby. Done.
I'm
Yeah,
going to
I
clip.
understand.
I'm going to clip that from YouTube and download it and turn it into a GIF, and that way it's ready to play in my Discord whenever Attira
Oh.
comes in.
I'm
He's
a
a
people
people person.
person.
But getting back to NPC crew, there seems to be a lot of, and CIG obviously hasn't done a whole lot to manage expectations appropriately about NPC or to NPC crew and how to inform us about what that will be like. Because just like everything else, it's going to be gamified to an extent. But if you have
Yeah.
NPC crew and you are the captain of the ship and they work for you, you are going to have to manage them, and there's going to be some gamification for that and how that will end up working. They aren't just mindless automatons that know exactly what you want them to do at any given moment. So starting off the conversation kind of like how we started off with modularity, and I'm going to start with you, Attira. What do you think the costs, cost, not just cost, but costs, plural, will be as far as having NPC crew members? What things will you have to consider as the leader or the manager of this operation in order to?
Remember what I told you was going to happen?
But it depends.
I got to step away.
Oh, okay.
So Nightcop, take it
Attira.
over.
Yeah, or Nightcop, you tell me what do you think the costs of NPC crew are going to entail?
I'm gonna take an example from kind of one of a recent game that I played. I'll plug it a little bit because it's a good game. If you guys haven't played BattleTech, the latest BattleTech came out a few years ago. But one of the things is you have to recruit mech warrior pilots, and when you recruit those mech warrior pilots, they come with certain stats, and they also come with certain liabilities. And you'll find that like some of the more unstable ones will just do random stuff to you, cost you something, whether it's money, whether it's time. Because ultimately, I like the idea if you're going to hire AI NPCs, and I hope they go this way. I'm really looking forward to the next Tony Z talk. I don't know what's going on in that world, but he talked about attributes. Right? Not, attributes isn't. I don't want to confuse it with the new skill system they're coming up with, but the like morality and like aggression versus pacification and stuff like that in terms of what they are. I think you'll have to manage the attributes of the AI that you hire. But you want to know the real truth? I mean, like that's a long ways off, in my opinion. I think people need to get real. Nice.
That's the
really,
thing that he warned us about.
That's the thing I warned you about. I was going to have to run and sign.
Yeah, I'm super jealous about it. Am I visibly green on screen? Did I actually change colors? There's a delay, so I don't know if it's happened yet.
Let me see if I can figure out how to do that.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be a thing. Yeah, like you won't like me when I'm angry.
You won't like me.
Um, uh, I lost my train of thought.
The
Oh,
Credible
so
Hulk.
yeah. So just to be real with everybody, I don't think that AI NPC coming anytime soon. And honestly, I don't think players should plan to fill them out for critical roles in their ship.
No, no, no,
They're
no, no.
Mhm.
they're you want thinking, capable individuals that know how to assess a situation and make good decisions based on the
Holy
variables of that
shit.
situation. And if you don't do that, you're going to be a less than crew for a bigger ship. And the idea that somebody's going to pilot a Idris or even a Polaris through the verse by themselves with just AI and find themselves capable is ridiculous to me. That's kind of harsh, but I'm sorry. Sorry, not
No, I think
sorry.
you're 100% right.
Yeah.
Like you might get away with a few AI that are there for the really trivial and I don't want to say inconsequential, but let's just say less than consequential activities and decisions. Because if you put it up to AI for the consequential stuff, I think you're hamstringing yourself in terms of your capabilities of your warship or whatever it is, your refining ship or anything, because you want the human being that can make a good decision, able to weigh all the factors, even the ones that are not apparent to the AI in the situations that you're in. That's
Yep.
what we want in the military. That's why AI hasn't replaced, pilots and stuff like that. It's funny. We were actually just talking about this at work today because AI has come a long way. I was watching somebody was doing a demonstration of AI generated art, and it's incredible what AI has accomplished. And we brought up the movie RoboCop, not the old one, but the new one. Where they're switching to like drone armed enforcers in the military and they're selling these technology, these drones to the military. And yet there's America, ironically, is the one holding back on it, saying like, no, 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 no. We're not doing law enforcement or military drones in the United States because they can't make moral decisions like a human being can to based on the moral variables. And don't get me wrong, I'm not worried about that getting to the point with AI, but it's not. It's also just
I do.
there are variables that are intangible to a NPC AI that are tangible to a human player, and
Absolutely.
and if you don't have that, then you're gonna be at a disadvantage. And I think people need to really start realizing what NPC crew looks like. They are literally there to just take care of the things that players don't want to trouble themselves with. The minutia, the easy stuff,
Mopping
you know?
floors.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Picking up trash, something like that. I mean, the stuff that I
Moving
mean, don't get me
cargo
wrong. There might be some.
containers.
Yes, yeah. There you like the basic functions of your ship
Replacing
that you don't want to
relays.
worry about.
Yeah.
Well, so
Yeah.
interesting you said that. So one of the things I said was engineering and maintenance in our notes.
Yeah.
And right, so I would assume we'll be able to set priorities, right? And I also make a key and critical assumption that by no means might be a reality, but I would assume an NPC would be able to access your inventories on the ship,
Oh yeah.
right?
Well, they showed a demo of that.
Well, and I'm sure that they'll have
So,
you'll be able to give your NPC crew permissions just like you do for
right.
players. Yeah.
So you give them access, they go in, they pull out the relays that you're going to have them replace, and they should be able to, if a relay burns out, run to and replace that relay, right? Now, is that the full extent of engineering gameplay? I don't. That's like tier one, right? They're giving us the first layer. That's probably the only thing I would ask them to do, right? Unless they give me a probability chance of that NPC succeeding in some complex engineering solution. Like if I found an NPC that had a 90% success rate of solving some engineering foobar, right? Or snafu or whatever, then yeah, okay, maybe that engineer worthy of me giving him responsibilities to handle something more complex. But otherwise, I think you're going to want a player as chief engineer and trying to do all of that and trying to manage all. And you're going to want players that can actively react in creative ways to. I
Yep.
mean, NPCs are augmentation tools, right? You may not want a player futzing about with a relay. Have the NPC go replace a relay. That's like an isolinear chip. You go sync, and you put the new one in, and away you go, right? Whereas there may be other complex issues, like if you don't have relays and you have to rewire an entire system, some type of mini gameplay, that might actually be a player.
So my thoughts on NPC crew is that as far as cost, obviously I don't know about you guys, but I really enjoy colony sims. I've been playing Stranded New Dawn quite a bit, and I really enjoy those colony sim games where you are, and the way that they have described it and what little they have talked about for NPC crew and everything, there is a lot of, it seems like, influence of RimWorld in it, in terms of your attributes and for NPCs, for AI. So attributes and then affinity, and it's the same sort of system that you see in games like RimWorld, like Stranded Alien Dawn, where your NPCs that you have to manage as part of your colony, they have attributes and as far as things that they're more or less skilled in, but then they also have affinities as far as things that they prefer to do, and both in terms of labor, but also in terms of recreation. And so I don't know if we're going to have to, is the Galaxy or the Polaris going to be better for your NPC crew morale because there's a pool table versus a Corsair, But I do think that they will, they will have things that they'll have affinity for tasks, as far as whether it's based off of their skill level or not, and they will unless you are giving them specific instructions, they will fall back on that affinity, just like they do for the Quanta system, as far as jobs that they're going to be drawn towards. And not only is it going to be, okay, how much is this paying, based off of it's a combination of factors. And so I really think that's kind of how they're building the back end system for the for Quanta, for NPCs, and the different levels of AI. And I think it's also going to factor into the cost. You can hire your different levels of crew, and maybe this person has this many points to spread across their different skills, and so they're going to cost a lot more than the person that starts off with this large of a pool. And
so I think they've already said that they're going to be proficient at certain things.
Yeah, as far as certain tasks. But is it always going to be based off of a pool of 10 points? Every NPC is 10 points, or some going to be a higher level NPC that has 20 points to spread across, if that makes sense.
That's like Mech Warrior 5.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
we were talking. I brought up BattleTech at the beginning of this because BattleTech's got a similar system.
Yeah,
and it uses a lot of the same Mech Warrior 5 engine type stuff, where it's like
BattleTech, Mech Warrior, the Colony Sims. There's a lot of shared things. The issue.
I'm about to launch a series, by the way. Me and a buddy of mine from college playing Mech Warrior 5.
Oh yeah, you were saying that.
Yeah.
I love that game.
It's a great game. I'm having such a blast.
That's, if I was to get out of medicine and go into games development, that sort of theme for BattleTech is the type of game that I would make, but it wouldn't be mechs, but it would be the mercenary company thing where you have your ship. Anyway, sorry. But I think the biggest challenge, and this plugs into what you were saying, Night Cobb, as far as setting expectations as to when, is the AI that CIG is working on right now, and a lot of the AI behaviors, are around Squadron 42, but it's, predominantly combat related, and then specific, sort of day-to-day stuff. And the combat AI is something that has been done, by lots of different game developers for lots of different games, regardless of whether it's FPS or flying, fighters and dogfighters or whatever. There is precedent for that as far as developing those behaviors, and people sort of know what they're doing coming into it. The issue is we don't have complex AI behaviors and AI to AI interactions for things like operating a reclaimer or an Orion. And that's the thing that I think people are, it's one thing because they're building AI to have an AI man your damn turret or to fire the missiles, or to do the mundane maintenance things like replacing relays and putting out fires, doing that sort of thing, removing ammunition across the ship, what have you. It's another thing to expect to have NPC crew operating a tractor beam turret, a salvage beam turret, and drones,
I get what
and
you're
all
saying.
three of those
Basically, you're
AI
saying, like,
working in concert.
yeah, it's one thing to have your
complex
javelin
operations.
crew.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one thing to have your javelin crew just say, all right, target that ship, and all turrets on that side start to fire at that ship. That's easy.
Mhm.
Whereas if you're sitting on a mole and you've got a complex rock that requires the firing
Exactly.
of multiple mining modules and all that kind of stuff, yeah, that requires way more competence than what I expect for typical AI, and I get
Yeah.
that, and I'm with you on that. I think you're a long ways off from that. Yeah, we might have AI turrets way faster than anything else. Anything,
Yeah.
and maybe some basic AI engineering. I'm with you there, Attira, on that one. But past that, like, I mean, you really just got to look at it as you're going to want people. You're going to want human beings that can communicate effectively. You don't have to open up a sub menu. You can literally just through VoIP say, "Hey, I need you to execute mining module A, B, whatever," and it happens quickly. It happens without a lot of thought on their part, because you're speaking their language and it's a human being to human being interaction. You're going to win way more engagements and way more industrial game loops that way.
Yeah. Have you ever played Pulsar?
No.
If you guys ever want to play that, we need to do that co-op game night. I will do it.
I have to recruit Salty into that because he knows
Pulsar Lost Colony.
He knows
Pulsar.
he knows the engineering. It's a slow game to be sure, and in one play session you might get 3 missions done. But if you're using NPC crew, right, you have a gunner, you have an engineer, you have a pilot. Who the hell would ever use the pilot? Good grief! And like a medic or something. I don't remember. But yeah, you can. If you look,
You see how he put you at the bottom of the rung there, Tree?
Yeah.
Like
No!
a medic
Who
or
would ever
something.
use
somebody barely useful in this scenario.
It smells like. Is there something on
guy.
fire? Something burning?
Yeah. Some corpsman. I don't know.
Some corpsman.
Just doing something. Probably lazing about in sick bay.
He's just
Doing
waiting
anything
for
useful.
somebody.
I'm an
to come
officer and I've got a
shot.
sliver. Come take care of this for me.
The interaction menu for those guys though is pretty impressive. It's like your monitor. It's like the whole monitor's height of priorities that you can set for what you want them to do. But I still think, as to your point, Nightcop, it's not enough. It's not good enough because you can't actively retask on the fly an NPC.
Yeah.
The only thing you can do, and I put this on here, is we should have commands for ship conditions, and that's it.
Oh, like
right?
general quarters or
So
battle
general
stations?
quarters or battle stations or something
I
like
agree
that.
with that.
And that then sets the NPC in a different status. So if the engineer is talking about in his bunk, smoking a cigarette or something, using up oxygen, right? And you call general quarters or you call battle stations, his ass is up and moving to the engineering, right?
Yeah.
You
he's
can do
filling
that
his
in Colony
pockets.
Sims.
He's filling his pockets with relays, and he's ready to go.
It's
Yep.
like
Your
the old
gunner-
Age of Empires. You click on the town hall and you ring the bell, and already stops what they're doing, and they go grab their pitchforks and their bows and arrows.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Before
your
you
gunner, he's
continue,
gonna
I got to
stand
interrupt
up
you
and he's
for
gonna.
1 second.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
So, my son is almost a year old next week. He took a couple little stumble steps earlier today while we were playing, like 2 kind of little stutter steps.
Yeah.
And so,
Nice.
well, let's turn this the right way.
Such a
Play.
proud father. Super cute.
I know, super dad, space dad. It's not.
Yeah.
You're not getting it. There you go,
Good.
right there. Nope. Just hit it where you can see it. There you go. Oh, stumble steps.
Oh
Hey,
yeah,
Cute.
nice.
look at
That's
that.
Nice.
good. Oh yeah.
Did a few.
Oh,
I
there we
have
go.
3.
We're good.
So
He's
I
good.
will say
He's
that
good.
that's fantastic. I love it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Adorable.
He's all excited because I made chili in the crock pot. So he's running now, apparently, because the chili came out so good. But yeah,
I'm excited.
my son is
Chili
taking
for him?
steps. Hooray!
Yeah, that's
chili
good.
and
Nice.
cornbread with cream corn and green chilies inside.
It was a banner day, man. That's a banner day.
That is a banner day, yeah.
That's what I'm saving my beer for. Is when we get
But
done.
see,
to go
now
down
you've
and sit and have dinner.
transitioned to a horrific time in your life where when you
Oh, it's
put the
terrifying.
child down, they're no longer there when you come back.
Where did he go?
And you're like, where did he go? Shit. What's he into? Right?
I love
That's
your
like a
RSI by the shirt, by the way. Just wanted to say.
whole
I just
new
noticed
level of terror that you have entered into. That is a great shirt, yeah.
I have the Nautilus shirt too. Yeah.
that. I
Sorry,
want a Scorpius one.
that my phone just buzzed and I was like, "There's the video," and that's, yeah, pretty big deal. Pretty big deal.
Velcro
It is
wall.
a big deal, yeah. I'm not a big fan of the naughty.
I will send them to you because I showed them off in Pathfinders the other night when we were talking about the ship pipeline. But I have the leaked Nautilus white box videos that are really cool, and I think you'll like them. So
It's not that I think that it's a unattractive ship. I think it's an attractive ship. I just question the utility of mining because we kind of have mines around stations and they really aren't that good.
Yeah.
Right?
In the vastness of space. Like, I agree with you. I saw that we had like that was like the first ship that I ever was like scrolling through the RSI webpage, and I was like, a mine layer?
I'll just go around.
Yeah, unless I don't know. So it's one of those things that's like, I'm really curious to see the gameplay that they try and build around a mine layer. I wonder if they sit in their office and they're like, man, just put that on the back burner because I have no idea how that's going to be effective or engaging. We'll just deal with that later.
Because it carries like 10 mines.
They've worked
or
on
something, 12
mines.
mines.
There's more than that, but they've worked on mines recently, and that's why I brought it up in the pipeline because they were talking about, at quick tangent, but they were talking about how they don't make ships without gameplay, and they're trying to avoid introducing ships. Yeah, they made that statement a couple of years ago. I got into it with Burks about it because he's like, "What about all these other ships?" I was like, "Yes, they made that statement in like 2018, 2019." And since then, the only ships we've gotten are ships that, the MSR doesn't have its specific gameplay, but it's a very utilitarian ship. The Forged Eye doesn't have exploration gameplay, but it's a utilitarian ship. It's still useful. It isn't the 890 or the Reclaimer, which is otherwise pretty useless. There's the kid in the background right now. But so getting back to NPCs, we talked about how they're going to be, how there's going to be a cost to them. You're going to have to, they're going to consume resources just like the players will. They're constrained by the same actor statuses that we are. They're going to have a salary that'll probably, be scaled to, how many skill, whatever level they are. Sorry, Nightcab, the sound alerts are not plugged into all my OBS scenes yet. So it doesn't work yet.
I know, imagine my disappointment.
Yeah. It's going to be, I just have to go through and do the work, but I didn't have time between video editing.
It was an inappropriate time too, but it was one of those things like, I have all these crayons. I wanted the So Say We All.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mainly because I was reacting to this child in the background,
Yeah.
like speaking, talking the language, and I was like, So say we all.
He's upset about something. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I'm with him. I'm sorry. I
don't
was
worry.
testing your emojis. I just had a moment. I
I'll
get
have them
distracted
working
easily.
soon. I promise. It took me long
Yeah,
enough just to get them all into the
it's
sound
okay.
alerts
It's
website
okay.
thing.
I know
But
you were like trying to talk about stuff, so I'm sorry.
Important
it's
things.
okay.
That's my bad. That's my bad.
The last couple of things I wanted to ask you guys about NPCs is because we talked about how the NPCs themselves work. You know what they've talked about as far as affinities and their skills and such as well. Um, what tools do you think we're going to have to manage them? Like, is it going to be a scroll wheel? You know, are you going to have a thing like in Mass Effect where you're pointing, using the scroll wheel in order to tell somebody to go here to do something? What are your ideas for how that would work in game? How you would
That
gamify
exhale
managing these
was
NPCs?
real.
What's
That
that?
exhale of exasperation was real.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm not. I know. I'm not trying to be negative. I'm not trying to be negative. I just
This
want
is
to be
the
clear
cold
about
water on
that.
expectations because that's
Yeah.
the other thing I
No,
like to do
yeah,
here
yeah.
when I do it on Pathfinders is inform and talk about these things in depth so that way people consider them both in the frame of reference of what information we have from CIG, but also what else is likely to come from other games or from real world influences that they might use in order to make this happen.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Well, two things come to mind for me, and that's I think about if you guys are DCS players and you've interacted with Jester in the F-14 like menu, where it's very similar to the personal in Star Citizen, like the close resemblance is the personal thought. Oh, it brings up the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The personal interaction thought.
Right. Yeah.
That tool. So I think it'd be something along those lines. Like all you got to do is F click on an AI NPC, and it brings up the wheel of interaction, and you assign them a task real quick. And that kind of goes diegetically with what they have already. And then I immediately go to the coffee vendor radial menu. Thank you, Robin Blitz. And then I immediately go to like what we have already with the coffee vendor. And, maybe it'll be something similar or akin to that, where it's like not exactly as player friendly, where they brings up the list of options of what kind of beer I want. And it's just like, all right, I gotta scroll down through. I'll get to the right action here, and hopefully there's not a sub menu. But then that's kind of why I assign it that radial menu, where it's like, okay, click this one radial menu icon, and then it brings up 6 new ones within the radial menu, and this is the one that I choose from, and they go from there and stuff like that. And that's the tricky part. I think the reason I'm exhaling is I'm like, that's a long ways away.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get there one day.
I think it's
so
for the simpler things. I think it's more that'll probably be a little bit more near term. It's I really think that people have expectations of what the NPCs are going to be capable of that are not in line with A, the reality of development, but B, the reality of what games can do.
Can support.
I
Absolutely.
totally agree with that.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like I really struggle with everybody talking about I'm gonna have 30 NPC blades on my, Javelin or Polaris, and it's like, no, you're not gonna be able to survive that way. You might be able
No.
to get out of dock and fly it around, but it's gonna be a little more than a Gladius
If
that's really
you're
big to
flying
you.
it. If
Yeah,
you're
if you're flying it. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I mean,
And
if you look at the Polaris, there's a captain's chair. Don't you want to sit in the center chair like a big boy?
honestly, no. That's a personal preference thing.
Okay, but you're born and bred engineer. Okay, so I want to sit in the captain's
No, all
chair.
right,
Big boy.
let's be
look-
clear. I've talked about this. I don't want to do engineering gameplay. I get enough of that work. I want to be in the pilot's chair. Or
Okay,
a gunner.
fair enough.
Turret
Fair
bro.
enough. But like you're a turret
Turret
bro.
bro.
That's right. But
Turret bro.
for the guy who wants to fly a Polaris solo, do you want to command that ship or do you just want to be the pilot of that ship? I can't imagine. I don't know. I feel like if you own a $700 ship,
You want to be the
don't want-
captain.
you want to be the captain of this.
I'm
this
with you.
awesome ship.
We don't have time to get into my thoughts on that whole idea too of like, what are we going to do when all these bigger ships are in game and you own 3 of them?
They sit in dry dock until such time as you can
I know. And there's
you
going to
can
be a
use them.
cost associated with that. There's going to be a
Maybe.
cost associated
I
with
mean,
that.
I wonder because it maybe, but not maybe.
If you move it to
I don't know.
another hangar that isn't the one that you own, if you're having to
Right.
rent hangar space, yeah, you're
Thank you.
boned.
Yeah.
But
That's what I
So,
think. I think you're going to get to the
but
point where you
but
got
what?
like people with huge fleets are going to be leasing ships
Oh,
Mhm.
to
without a
pay for
doubt.
their costs.
But here's the thing though, right? So like every ship comes with a hangar. So does that mean that you have just say for every ship you have a hangar? So this goes to like, okay, game day launch, right? Game day launch for Star Citizen. And you have you're some $10,000, $15,000. Does this mean you have to select a I know, look at trees looking around like you have to choose a
You
My
planet
wife
leasing
can't
that.
hear
You're
you.
going to be leasing that to your org, man. That's what that's
Well,
the reality, right?
absolutely, I'm gonna
Yeah.
open up most of my ships to my org. But as a day one problem, you're gonna have to say where I want this hangar in the verse and what ship is in that hangar. Right? So the Javelin owners, I don't know what hangar a Javelin comes with. Let's be clear. Kel does not own a
That's a
Javelin.
space dock ship. That's a space dock ship.
It is. But does it come with a hangar? I don't know. I've never even seen this.
It's kind of
Where
like
do you?
a
But if it stays where you spawn it, like the first time, like the place that you put it, and you take it back consistently to that place, which is your dock that you own, I assume there won't be a charge to that. But yeah, I think
I
you're right. If you go someplace else and you have to rent space for a ship like that, it's going to cost you.
the analogy for that is the Kirov heavy cruiser from the Russians gets decommissioned and sold to Nigeria. And they had the money to buy it, but they don't have the people to crew it. They don't have the money to operate it. It just sits in the port of whatever city sits on the coast of Nigeria and looks cool, and occasionally they, shoot some fireworks off of it, on Nigerian Independence Day, but it doesn't actually get used. That's, and
Yeah.
no,
You can
I'm
draw
not
the same
disparaging
analogy to US
Nigeria, but I'm
battleships,
pretty
by the
sure.
way.
Yeah, same thing.
Those are still available for active service, but they basically sit in a dock and they suck up money in the terms
Lots
of
of it.
maintenance costs.
Okay, but I
Lots of it.
went up.
Yeah,
What
not
is it? The
small amounts.
Missouri? Is that the one in Hawaii? The Missouri
Yeah.
that you can tour? That's a badass ship.
It is a badass ship, but she's not in active service. But she could be
No,
pulled into
but
active service. But she
Oh,
costs a
and
lot to maintain down there.
woe to the son of a bitch that forces us to do. Yeah, that's a
Um,
cool ship.
Now, don't be
So-
wrong. I don't disagree with you. And you know that's not the only one, right?
I'm gonna reel us back
there's-
in.
there's-
Reel us back in.
No, we want to talk about battleships.
I'm
They're
gonna
cool.
pull your.
All right.
We're gonna put a pin. We're gonna put a pin
Put a pin in that.
the
NPC
in capital
NPC
ships.
crew, right?
But
What
So-
were we talking about? We were talking
we were
about
talking about managing them,
management
and I
tools.
wanted this. We talked about the radial menu, and you know how we have the radial menu that we have right now, in that you
Right.
can customize it with the things that you use the most.
Yes.
What I
Yeah.
was thinking is, what if when you went to interact with an NPC, or you have these NPCs, their little icon is on the right side of your screen, and you press whatever, Control F1 or Control 1 to open up that radial menu for that NPC. What if you could customize the radial menu for each one based off of their skills? So that way you could say, okay, you've got these 5 presets based off of their skills, and then one more button to get you into the niche things that they are, you don't normally use, in order to quickly be able to give them tasks that you want done. And if they're not automatically doing one of those tasks, you also have a separate radial menu for select, with sub menu for putting in their, selecting their affinity for things to do, during downtime when you don't have when they've completed their specific task and you don't have something else to give them. Because I think that would be a manageable way to manage them doing those, those general things that we talked about. But I honestly cannot think of a feasible way in a high tempo combat situation where you could do stuff like that in order to manage those NPCs to be able to do, to do those coordinated things that you need them to do in a capital ship or even a large ship in a combat scenario or an industrial scenario.
Yeah, what you're talking about is you're not looking at them. You're sitting in your captain's chair.
So that's
And those
what I
menus
was
are
gonna
based
get
on a
to.
personal interaction. So what you ultimately need is department heads that can go around the ship in the respective locations that matter and
Yeah.
interact with them, or do so through a station for
Yeah.
like combined actions. Which that's a whole new level of coding that they haven't even gotten to.
So
Yeah, tiering it in order to say over voice to, wouldn't be Night Cobb because he doesn't want to be an engineer, but to whoever your engineer is, hey, we need you to do this. And then the engineer can use a couple of his NPCs to, hey, I need you to go do this and this while I do this. In order, a series of force multipliers is what they are with your human crew. But I just
but
don't see
I don't think
having
it
an
can be a
all
radio
NPC
menu,
crew.
though.
Yeah.
I don't think it can be.
It doesn't have to be a radial menu, but I could see using a radial menu to assign tasks.
Anything that they do that's flashy, like a radio
Mm-hmm.
menu, is going to cost you time.
Yeah.
And I think
Well,
players
that's
are
part
going
of
to get more frustrated with a radio menu where it's like, vroom, and then you're like,
Yeah, and
click.
vroom. Yeah, and hopefully it drives those players to realize that the real value of this
Yes.
game is the multiplayer roles.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I agree, sure.
Yeah.
But I do think, like, for instance, if you call battle stations, right, your UI as a captain should change, right? So if you have a single, right, and this comes back to like, I had a conversation. I got to go to CitizenCon, and I asked John Crew what he had against captain's chairs, and he said, "Well, captain chair, you're the captain. It's all about charisma and your ability to lead." And that's fine. That's true. But it's also about the information that it's fed to you, ability to communicate with the crew, right?
Yeah.
Especially in a high, right? And there's only one place that really allows you to do that, and it's the bridge. And there's only one really place that allows you to do that on the bridge, and that's where the captain's station is, right? And he's got all the tools laid out and allows him to the ship, right?
Yep.
And it's the same thing in the Army for battalion commander. Where is he now? It's a little bit more fluid for the Army because an infantry battalion commander can fight from a radio and a map, right? And so can an armor battalion commander, right? They have the option to, well, depending on the type of fight, of a talk, right? And that talk gives them more capability, more radios. But the bottom line is their leaders require information to make decisions. And you require the communication system we call C4I or C4ISR that allows us to then disseminate guidance after we make a decision. So that's what a captain's chair or a captain's station for a multi-crew ship like the Carrack that doesn't have necessarily a captain's chair, right? You have the globe up top that should act as a captain's station, and I should be able to lock into that like a station.
Yeah.
When you call battle stations and you start to manage your high intensity situation, the UI changes, right? It should be intuitive. And it's not this convoluted, irritating radial menu that's slow. It should be something quick, right? So if a relay goes out and you're the captain and you right, and all you have, let's say, is maybe you only have a couple of friends with you, NPC filling as an engineer, and a relay goes out, right? You should be able to just click on that guy who has a representation icon combat, right, HUD as a captain at that station, because that's where you are during combat. And that allows you to then, it opens the same thing as what you're talking about for the radio menu, but instead of being with him and clicking on him, it's just a part of your HUD.
Oh, yeah. I
Which
wasn't meaning you have to click on the
you can
NPC
now,
himself. Just,
yeah,
wherever
so
you
you can
click on
now
him,
bring
it
up
pulls up
the
a
tree,
menu. Yeah.
and then you can, not tree, pun, and then tell him what you want him to do.
Stop
Right?
bringing
So
me up. I'm so tired. Every
focus
time.
on relays, right? Focus on engine maintenance, focus on hull repair, focus on,
damage control,
fucking repair the oxygen, right?
Mhm.
Life support,
fight
right?
fires.
Life support, right? Fight fire, that kind of stuff, right? So, and those are like the simple things that at those critical points you're going to need. Like a fire alarm goes off in whatever, you're going to say, I want the fire dealt with in engineering first, right? And so he goes off and does that. Now, I think also though, a pulsar like menu would not go amiss, right? So if I have a soup to nuts menu that I as a captain can access from my station, and I can say I want Jim Bob to focus, because he's an engineer, on the following things. So fire, number 1, relay, number 2, or if we get something more complex in engineering gameplay than relays, right? Whatever. And then something else, number 3. And I tell Gunner, right? Okay, Gunner boy, right? Your number 1 priority is getting to the right turret and gunning. But if I call repel borders, your ass gets out of that turret and you pull out your sidearm and you stand by and you're prepared to repel borders and try and kill PCs that come onto the ship. So there's you should be able to set like actions per condition of the ship. So there's I don't know, standard operating, peacetime operation. There's a condition when you're at a heightened alert.
Yep.
There could be just an emergency condition where you get hit by a flare and everybody needs to be in an emergency condition in combat.
Casualty condition.
Sure.
Mhm.
And then there's combat.
Yep.
And each of those conditions has a set priority that you can preset for your NPC that tells them what they should be doing during that by either percentages or just prioritized list that says if there's nothing wrong here, I go do this. If there's nothing wrong here, I go do this. And the moment this happens, I stop what I'm doing and I go deal with this problem.
Yeah.
And then
the amount of planning that will go into that is part of what I think will drive a lot of people away from doing that and drive them away, because like you were talking about, Night Cobb, planning is the primary game loop. And in order to be successful at using NPC crew, even as successful as you can with NPC crew versus people, planning. You got to do even more planning over what you would do otherwise. And I think that's going to be like the on top of the costs, that's going to be the other significant limitation. And that's really just for using them for generic tasks that they can perform that aren't really in concert with other NPC. But
here's the thing. Gamers are not on average going to be super some of them are. Some of them are very super decisive in their decision. Others are not. Yeah. So that level of planning specificity allows a less decisive gamer to kind of plan and try to keep himself afloat a little bit longer, right?
Yeah.
It also allows for smaller organizations to take out larger ships and enjoy those ships with some of the mundane work carried out by NPCs and then the more important roles handled by players. And it allows you to mix and match. And then you got freaking juggernauts like, I don't know, Test and Explorers and all these other guys who are like, hey guys, we're taking on a job.
And they've got a lot of people who are no better than NPCs anyway. So
200 people show up and you're like, well, but yeah, sure. Yeah. And then you run into a totally different problems of comms infrastructure and 200 people on the same Discord trying to communicate,
Yeah.
which is a completely different problem, which we will not
Yep.
get into here.
Yeah.
But it does
can, yeah.
allow you to kind of set some of the mundane tasks. And if you can switch their prioritization level with something as simple as a ship condition, then it allows you to kind of sort of get after those basic tasks of staying alive without, you know, taking all your time. Because you, the player, don't always want to be doing.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
of it will be fun. Some of it will just be like, I blew another relay. You'll be like, hey, Jim Bob,
I have to
go
get up out of
fucking
my chair again and go back to the
change that
cargo
relay
bay
so I can
and get
keep
a
flying.
relay.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think it would be beneficial, but you're right. It's a long way away now. I don't even think they've started to think about
Well, they have a
interface
lot.
for
Some of the
NPC control.
they have been working on a lot of the behaviors for NPCs to work with interactables. So the ability
Yep.
for an NPC to replace a component, to replace a relay, I think is something that we will see in Squadron 42. And
Oh,
that,
sure.
yeah, but anything beyond those basic maintenance, damage control mechanics, putting out fires, replacing relays and components. I don't think we're going to see much beyond that. Any complex maneuvers, beyond
But in
that.
Squadron 42, they can magic a lot of stuff,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because
And
that
you also
Idris
have a
that you're
ton of
flying off
processing
of,
overhead, versus
right? Yeah.
the server having to, relying on server tick rate to make sure that things
Oh
happen on
yeah.
my ship gives me all sorts of uncomfortability.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. But I mean, like, because you're off in your Gladius, right? You're killing the kingship with
Mhm.
your Gladius while that Idris, doing
Yeah.
whatever an Idris does in Squadron, right? But
Mhm.
what's going on that Idris is magic, because it doesn't matter. As long as the Idris survives and you replace the land, it's not a big deal, right?
Yep.
Because what they're telling you in Squadron is a story. It's an adventure, right?
Yeah.
And you're the
It's
hero.
already pre-scripted. Pre-scripted is what.
It's scripted, right? I mean, yeah, the major milestone is it's a classic first-person game. That's why they say, right, like the Idris and Javelin really complete, because they're complete for Squadron, but that's not necessarily the same ship we're going to get in Star Citizen, because what the NPCs need versus what we need to suck the egg are two different things.
Mhm.
And so when what us maintaining that ship and Squadron maintaining that ship is two very different problems for CIG.
Yeah.
So
So here's
there may be points in the game in Squadron where the Idris is undiable. It just can't be killed, right?
yeah.
Because that's the story. And
Mhm.
and then there may but you're absolutely dead in about 15 minutes from 4 ships right now in an Idris.
Yeah.
4 or 5
Um,
ships, small ships, you're in trouble.
Before we wrap it up, because I gotta go have dinner in a couple minutes. Oh,
No worries.
hey, it's Nick. Just raided
Oh
with a
man.
party of 4.
Oh man,
Hey,
and then he
it's
raided.
Hey.
Hey, Nick raid.
Welcome.
Thank you for the raid, Nick. I appreciate you. Nick was one of my partners.
One of mine too.
Hey. Oh yeah, for
Hey, Nick.
Captain's Table. Yeah, we've got now we just need to get Nick on with Attira on Captain's Table, and he'll have completed the trifecta. He'll have done a hat trick.
You've collected
with
all
three
three,
of
Nick.
the.
Or not
Collected
yet.
all
Yeah,
3.
2. Yeah, you got
What
2.
does he get? What does he unlock?
Maybe we'll gift him. When Nick collects all 3, we'll gift him a sub. Yeah, he is.
I could do
as Nick
better
was
than
saying
that.
on
Nick, let
Captain's
us know, man.
Table.
I'll get you some Navy swag or something like that.
Oh
man.
yeah, well we need
Oh,
patches.
Navy swag. Ah.
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
need
I
patches.
could get you Navy swag. What I couldn't get you is Army swag, because I'm not on an Army base.
Mm-hmm.
You guys let me know. I'll get you
That's
some Navy swag.
That's what Nick always says when he's on Captain's Table. He's Nick, what do you got? Because you always say that you're always like in the background on everybody's Twitch and stuff, always hanging out, like with Galactica and stuff. It's always entertaining to see the little clips of Nick shenanigans on different people's Twitches. But before we, thank you so much for the raid. Really appreciate it, bud. I'll have to have you on Pathfinders or something sometime. That'd be a lot of fun. But I wanted to ask you guys one more question before we wrap it up, because Chili is waiting. Yeah, you can find a clip of Nick basically anywhere. I wanted to ask you guys if you had a preference. You're in your preferred ship. Maybe it's the Perseus for you, Night Cobb. I don't know what it would be for you, Attira. We haven't really talked about that.
I'm
But if you
in my captain's quarters. So look,
you're in your carrick. Okay, so Night Cobb in his carrick, Nick in not Nick. Sorry, Night Cobb in Attira in his carrick, Night Cobb in his Perseus. If you have to use NPC,
I'm not a carrick Karen. Don't accuse me of that.
Oh,
zing.
zing, ow.
If you've got NPC crew, you've got a few of your humans as well. You've got like 2 human buddies to help you out, help you crew your ship, and you have to use NPCs. What's your first priority for those NPCs, those NPC crew?
My first priority for the NPCs on my Perseus.
Yep, on your Perseus, doing what a Perseus does.
Yeah, they're keeping the head clean. Everybody else on a slot on my it's not even a joke. Like, they're keeping the head clean, the floor scrubbed, putting trash away, because I trust them for nothing else. I want real people in the 2 gunner positions on dual size 7 guns. I want people I can talk to. I want a person I can talk to in the co-pilot chair, and I want a no-kidding engineer running engineering for me. I have no desire for NPCs whatsoever on my crew. And that's kind of why I picked the Perseus. I'm be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you own a Perseus?
Crew. No, I don't. No, I own a Titan, guys. That's where I'm
I
at.
was going to say, I'm
Titan.
super jelly.
Night Cobb has a permanent
future.
spot on my Perseus until he gets his own. That's how he'll earn his way up. Is I'll have him running my Perseus for me, so I can be the engineer. He can fly.
Like, if you,
the captain. We're gonna do a little bit of
if you say I need a
reversal.
pilot for my Perseus, I'm be like, I'm down. That's what my eventual, even if you were like, I need a gunner, I'd be like, yeah, I'm down. I got to work my way up through the ranks. So be it.
When you know how like in Colony Sims there is that sort of that low level mundane task of you have to move things from here to there. You're moving them from the supplies from your supply storage to the actual places where things get done. You have to have somebody cleaning up the trash, taking out the trash. Otherwise, the morale on the ship goes down. I can totally see that being a task that an NPC will do. You need to, the NPC, you're essentially saying your one NPC crewman that you're going to rely on is going to be the guy going from the cargo hold to the turrets in order to keep their ammo supplies up, and doing the cleaning essentially. Yeah. So same question, Attira, but the Carrack is an exploration ship and you are on an expedition. What is your NPC your NPC crew? Say you've got you and 2 other humans on a 6-person ship. You've got 3 NPCs. What do those NPCs do?
3 NPCs.
Just remember, guys, before he answers this question, he manages binders.
I manage binders.
If you could turn Night Cobb, if you could turn his camera around in the Carrack where he is right now, you would see all the binders up on the bookshelves.
Binders everywhere.
In front of him.
Yeah.
They're all neatly labeled and
surveillance
organized.
Programs and maintenance programs to worry about Like, he doesn't have time for people.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have time for people.
The rest of us have collectibles and things that we've discovered up on the bookshelves. He's got
just going to make you stand out in the hall while I work on my binders waiting for me. He's laughing because he knows I've never done that in the Army, and I've never experienced a leader in the Army.
Truth nukes getting laid out by Attira right there.
Truth nukes.
We'll make you wait out in the hallway while I review the binders. That's all I've got time for.
Okay, I have to clip that later because Truth Nukes is going to become one of my sound alerts. Truth Nukes.
Yeah, Truth Nukes.
And I'm gonna make a GIF for it. A bomb falling and Truth Nukes.
Man,
That's
Yep,
what he's
that's
got NCOs for. His NCOs are managing his people. He's not worried about that stuff. He's
that's on
worried
my
about
list
big
of
picture
things to
stuff.
do tomorrow. I can't
Yeah.
wait to
Look,
drop
there
it
are
in our group
programs.
chat.
There are
Oh,
programs
boy.
that need to be audited and dealt with. I'm just telling you.
the inner platoon and company commander in me is
I'm sure it's hurting.
full rage mode right now, and I'm
I know. Right now, though, there are probably several Navy officers that are like, God, he's so right.
or the other side is guys, dick.
Yeah. Well, I
Ugh,
mean, they're probably like, senior enlisted. I hate them.
I hate them so much.
If we didn't need
Navy
them, we would
chiefs.
throw them overboard.
Throw them
Yeah.
over. Walk the plank.
If I didn't need him to
kill
manage
all of
my
'em.
people for me, I would be really upset and probably kicking him out of this right now. I got to go review a binder.
Okay,
Yeah, sorry.
Attira.
Go ahead. I'm done.
Attira, your 3 NPCs, your NPC fire team. What are they
Oh,
doing for you
man,
on your
gosh.
expedition for your character?
Well, I think primarily it's just kind of like what Nike was saying. It's maintenance, which obviously includes mopping, cleaning, but also, I mean, fire's big, and keeping the ship clean helps reduce that. So general maintenance, that's one area that they can, and I assume large ships, great deal of maintenance this needs to occur over time, and I hope that that's the case. I hope that they're not just these pristine ships that we drive around constantly and they never require any work, right? So that kind of mundane stuff would be great for PCs. If we go into combat, I think relay replacement is a good job for an NPC. Run around, stick a thing in, pull the old thing out, stick the new thing in, and you're back up and running, right? That's, I mean, you've cut off 2 of my guns, right? So I assume I'm piloting, and I have 4 guns, and
you're on an exploration. You're a deep space expedition. You're
shit
exploring
happens
a strange
in the
new world.
black. There's
You're not getting shot
can't-
at. This isn't a combat
No,
scenario.
that's-
No. You pick the
I'll be
character.
right back, guys.
all right.
Night
Not
Cop, pick
a
the
combat
Perseus.
situation. Not a combat situation. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Well, gosh, a third. So a dude is doing general repair and maintenance. Probably all of them at different points. What was the other thing I said? I'm old.
Maintenance and cleaning and
Relay replacement, right?
Mhm.
And gosh, in a Carrack. Ugh. I mean, I guess you could have in an exploration vessel, you could probably hire an NPC that is good at scanning gameplay.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean that he's as good as a player. It doesn't mean that he's going to catch. You hire the right NPC, that NPC behind the terminal and scan, and he, you might get a verbal cue, unknown contact, starboard 10 kilometers, or anomaly at X, right? And then from there, you as the player with your player pilot can then, or you as the pilot can then decide whether you want to adjust course to go investigate that anomaly.
Mhm.
So that might be another.
I could definitely
good
see
opportunity.
an NPC operating the scanner, and you just tell them, "I need you to scan this area," and it's like a 6x6 box, and on the map or whatever, and they'll just go through meticulously and scan each box, and you'll get a notification if they find an anomaly, and then maybe you take over scanning, or you tell them, give them an instruction to do a detailed scan, at higher resolution or something. But
Yeah,
not having the I don't think they would have the initiative to, okay, well, I found an anomaly, I'm going to investigate it further, blah blah blah, the specific instructions.
Well, maybe it depends, right? It depends on the guy, because they've said, right, that certain NPCs will be very good at certain things.
Mhm.
So maybe they will.
I think the being good at it would
sure.
reduce time.
Reduce time, yeah, more accurate.
Another way, be more efficient or be more accurate, or increase likelihood, this or that.
Something happened. He's dealing with a sailor right now. He's nodding his head.
No, Ghost Dog. Ghost Dog was misbehaving. I had to go deal with that.
So I said scanning. So maintenance, relay repair, and scanning. Because I think scanning is a fairly passive thing that give you a cue that something is out there, and then you could either take over scanning and narrow that down, or you could just cowboy it, head in, see what's there as an explorer, and see what you find. But it wouldn't be. I mean, God, with 3 people, you also have to have a couple of them that were designated as gunners. If
And that's
you only
easy.
have,
That's easy AI for the most part.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, because as three players and 3 NPCs to
I'm not
man
going to give
all
you
the
the easy
guns.
out though, because they're not going to be manning the guns all the time. Only
No,
only when you go to
right.
condition red.
That's where I
That goes
demand
back to the battle stations, general
my
quarters
battle
stuff.
stations mode, right? Yeah. So
Yeah.
when I call battle stations
Ring the
with the
bell.
push of with a button, yeah, ding 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 ding. Yeah, they go to the turret. The right guys go to the turret, and the right guys go to the turret to wherever the fuck I'm going to send them, right? But the key is, right, because one of those players is my engineer. So really, that immediately alleviates. I have to probably have 3 NPCs in it because one of those is probably a pilot, or I'm the pilot. One, maybe 2 of them are in the gunners, and one of them is an engineer. And that
Yep.
leaves the rest to kind of pull maintenance, put out fire, and things like that, which I lump into the maintenance category, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, so maintenance, relay, repair, replace, and scanning. I think that kind of covers what I would have NPC as a primary function. I wouldn't have them feature that.
So
I would
I'm gonna
never let an
use.
NPC pilot my ship.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
insanity.
not my
I'd
big
crash
ship.
into
It is. It is insanity in my mind.
How would you guide that? So then we have to talk about
No.
didn't
Yeah.
too far
You can't.
is ground combat with NPCs. And you said, are we going to have something like Mass Effect where you have 2 NPCs behind you, right? And you can say like, oh God, I've forgotten all their names. Garrus,
Yeah, Garrus.
Garrus, right? I want you to go crouch behind that cover, right, and engage, right? And then you also have all his throw grenade would be clearly a thing an NPC could do, or whatever. I hope the combat is as fluid as Mass Effect was.
Yeah, that is
That
my
would be
only hope for that level of control,
that would be
especially on the
ideal.
ground.
Yeah, that would be ideal. Is that and let's be clear, they'd have to limit the number of NPCs you could take with. I don't think you
Yeah.
could take like a battalion
I think
size
there
element,
definitely needs
500
to.
NPCs.
There will be limitations. So I'm gonna wrap this up so that way we can call it a night, so I can go have dinner with my thoughts. And I'm going to use the Galaxy as an example because we use the Carrack, we use the Perseus, because the Galaxy is my new hospital ship now, and that's my thing, hence the logo. But I'm going to use the Galaxy with the medical module, and so obviously I'm going to use NPCs in order to move medical supplies from the cargo area to restock the med beds. I think they're going to be great for doing that. But I think that a good use for an NPC on a ship like that would be as your shuttle pilot. I've got my C8R parked in the butt of my my Galaxy. I'm never going to let them fly the Galaxy because hell no. But I think that you will have the ability to say, okay, here's a person in need of rescue, and I can send myself or another player down as the medic in the C8R, and I don't have to pilot the ship. I can do whatever it is I want. I can, okay, we'll be there. We got ETA 3 minutes. I'm going to go get a beer before we get into combat and I have to rescue this person, because I'm totally going to do that inebriated. But, there's.
It's one beer.
I fly
beer.
better drunk than an
Yeah.
NPC is ever going to fly. Can you imagine
Look,
docking and
if my
unlocking
medic
operations?
is not under the influence of some kind of drug or
Think about
stimulant or depressant, I don't want him working on me. I don't want him working
Yeah.
on me. He's going to have steady hands.
The NPCs can already land dropships. They can land the Cutlass Red. They can fly those splines and everything. So all you have to do is tell it that the beacon is here. And on the new star map, you zoom into the planet. Okay, the beacon's here. Here's a flat spot that's 200 meters nearby. I want you to land me right there. And they
What
can
if
do
it's in
that.
a combat zone? What if it's in a
Well,
combat zone?
then I tell them to move farther away. But this is just someone
No,
fell
man,
down.
you're gonna want a real pilot. I hate to break it to you, you're gonna want a real pilot for that. And I'm ready to volunteer. Don't be wrong.
Yeah, but
I'll
say
take
it's a
down your C8R.
we've got
Yeah.
I love
yeah
I
I've
love
got
the
you.
it's the
Pisces.
same scenario
Yeah,
that
it's fun to
Attira
fly.
has. We've got a 6-person crew on the Galaxy, and I've got 2 other humans with me and 3 NPCs, and we have to go rescue. We've got an injured person down there who fell down, went boom. They were rappelling off a cliff or whatever, and so we need to go get them. Okay, well, we've got imagery that says, oh yeah, they've got a tier 1 injury and they're going to die in 5 minutes. Okay, we can get there in the C8R in 2 to 3, which gives me 1 to 2 minutes to get there to start treating them to extend that timer. I'll have another player ready at the med bed, ready in the med bay in order to receive the patient, get things ready. I'll have another person on the on the bridge, flying the ship, managing the ship, and then you've got an NPC, running supplies around, and then an NPC maybe, manning a turret. But if the NPCs can already fly a dropship down to the surface and follow those splines, all I have to do is tell them where to land, and then the NPCs can already land a ship in a hangar. All I have to do is be like, okay, we're on board, take me back to the hangar, and it's done. And so I have my EMT, my ambulance driver for my space ambulance who's ready to go, and I don't have to take one of my player
He's
crew to
laughing
do it
because
for
he
me.
sees me. I totally disagree
There's
with you.
such a conflict of
I'm with you on your NPC game, literally up until the pilot of your Pisces, man. And I'm
It's just
be
the
like,
piloting a Pisces.
I'm-
it's like
I
they can already
honestly
do that with a
I'm telling
cutlass
you,
blade.
man.
I honestly think having an NPC running the med bay is potentially a better use of the NPC because
I agree.
that's not a complex series of things, right?
Ah, so we're gonna put a
It's
pin in
not in
that
Star
conversation.
Citizen. It's not in Star Citizen. It's not in Star Citizen, and it's never going to be in Star Citizen.
We will talk
accept
about
it
that
now,
another time.
and
What?
you'll feel better if you just go ahead and bite down on that bullet right now.
No,
I
because
What's
I
never in Star Citizen?
He's talking about medical gameplay, and I haven't explained what I think medical gameplay is going to be like with the different tiers of beds.
Buddy, I'm so sorry.
No.
All right.
It's like
okay.
me, DW. It's you and medical.
I know, and that's why I'm like
it's the
sitting here
frame
like,
of reference. And once I explain it to you, you'll be like, "Oh, that makes sense. That's total easy gamification. It's not a big deal, because all it is mining, but with a med bed, and keeping moving things up and down in order to keep get person from red, and try and get them as close to green as possible to get the good payout, or to and that's just with treating them, not with healing them entirely. But you can use it for healing as well. But it's
so you want to trust an NPC to pilot the ship rather than to maintain
because the
a
NPCs
a
already
given
do
amount
that.
of medication within a. Do they really though?
Yeah, but
It's already in game right now.
An NPC's reaction time to controlling the power output of mining, like their reaction time, would be far faster than a person's.
But I don't trust an NPC to know, okay, they have this injury, and this injury.
There's a bunch of variables in
this
combat zone, though.
this medication, and you need to give them in these increments and adjust them on the fly in order to keep the person in the green or in the yellow, or keep the timer from going down. Because that's
what you want you want a human player for both, and I'm with you. I don't think
ideally yes, but that's not the situation. Yeah. If I have to give the NPC the lowest, the lowest responsibility in this situation, do I want the NPC flying my galaxy? Absolutely not. Do I want my NPC managing the tier 1 med bed when I drop off the injured person in there who I've been trying to keep alive with the tier 3 med bed? Absolutely not. So
I hate to say this, but honestly, I think you might be backwards depending on what that galaxy is doing. If the galaxy is just holding a position and ready to accept medical because it's well in the safe zone, then I put my NPC pilot in the pilot chair of the galaxy in that moment. And instead, I put a human pilot maybe my normal pilot of the galaxy in the C8R.
Okay. Yeah.
Possible, yeah.
I mean, if you're
he's
just
station
holding
keeping,
orbit,
Yeah, if you're
but
just
that's,
yeah, if
or
you're just
maybe
holding
you
orbit,
don't need
man.
a pilot at all.
but
because you're in a
I'm
safe
saying
zone.
not just the pilot. He's the one up into the captain's chair. He can take over piloting. He's managing the ship, watching, making sure we don't get ambushed. He's in charge for now.
But you can do that as captain.
Yeah.
To a
Yeah,
large
but
degree.
he wants to be the medic.
I don't want to
He's
be
too
the
busy
captain.
drinking. No, he wants to be drinking. That's what he
Yes.
stated earlier. He's like, I want to be drinking beer and
I want to
chilling
be drinking
while
beer
things are on
and
autopilot.
While trying to
injecting-
save my
injecting
life
things
after a
yes.
bunker run that went wrong.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
I hear. I'm gonna get
You can do it.
drunk medical aid.
You can do it. Look
I
at
got-
you. Yay!
I got crayons to eat and beer to drink. That's what he's thinking. All
The
right.
tree is totally distracted now by babies.
Yeah, it happens.
He just took a couple steps over to me because mommy brought him upstairs. Look, Booney. Those are my friends. Yeah. We're
Aw.
hanging out. We're talking spaceships. You're getting ready for nighttime, aren't you? Yeah.
Those submarines on your jammies?
There are submarines and ski-doos, and it's a weird combination of things on the jammies. Yeah. There's a
As
pickup
with
truck
just about
and like a...
as with just about all baby clothes, they're just
Yeah.
very strange.
Well, and he has like 3 different types of space jammies too, with like planets and stuff. But
I support the submarines on the jammies. I'm just saying.
Booney's off to bed. You be good.
You got to get him some
Go right
tank
to sleep.
jammies though.
Mwah. Right.
You know, I don't. Those are going to be
Good
pretty
night.
niche. Good luck finding those. Don't get me wrong; those are obviously not warship submarines. You know. just
No,
the
that's an
principle.
orange submarine, kind of like a yellow submarine, but orange.
Yeah.
It's
I
one
mean,
of
as far as
Jacques
niche
Cousteau's
things for
submarine.
yeah, as far as
down
niche
with it,
things for
though.
a baby, he has 3 stuffy toys. One is a smoke grenade, one is a frag grenade, and one is an anti-tank mine, and they all squeak.
Yes.
So you can lay your head down
Yes.
on the anti-tank mine, and it squeaks. So,
Ah.
but yeah, that's
I
my thought.
have a war story about an anti-vehicle mine that maybe
Oh,
I'll tell
gosh.
another time. That let's just
Put a
say it was a
pin in it.
very close call.
Oh, yeesh. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a number
have
of
all
those
kinds
too.
of- Couple cool stories about minefields and walking through them.
Yep.
One of these days, by the way, Tree, we're going to have to do just like a military story episode where we very loosely tie it to Star Citizen.
We will get a lot more booze involved.
Yeah. A
It'll be
lot
fun.
of booze and
Yeah.
hopefully no tears from PTSD. Fine.
Yeah. It'll be
No,
fun.
no, only funny stories. Only cool and funny stories.
Only
I've got
cool
rules.
stories.
Yeah.
All of
Yes,
mine
they're
are
all
from
cool with
Thailand.
enough alcohol.
Oh, man, the public's not ready for that.
Yep.
The public's well, maybe.
But those are our thoughts on NPC crew, asset or liability, and the pros and cons of ship modularity. If you're still hanging out with us in chat, or if you're watching this on YouTube later, I'm going to speak for all of us when I say thank you so much for joining us, hanging out with us live, and coming and watching us on YouTube later. Go watch both of these guys. Go watch their stuff. Give them a follow or like and subscribe. Yeah. And join me in my Discord so you can hang out with us. If you have questions or you want, you have suggestions, things that you would like to see us talk about, hop in the Discord or leave a comment in the comments in order to let us know. We really appreciate it. And but yeah, that's it. That's all we have for tonight, guys. Thanks for joining me again. There will not be another AAG episode in December. Just due to scheduling and the holidays, we will, just like CIG, we'll be back in January. So
Absolutely.
you will see us then, but you can always interact with us in the Discord and in the comments. We read all the comments. We reply to pretty much every single one of them. We really enjoy the engagement. So come hang out with us. Come chat with us. We always look forward to it. And if you are watching this live and you didn't get to catch the whole thing, it will be up on my YouTube next week. I'm just trying to feed the algorithm between this and Pathfinders before I go on vacation. So it will be up eventually. So if you follow and get the notifications, you'll see it then. So thanks again, guys. If you want to say goodnight, say goodbye, whatever your little catchphrase is, drop some truth nukes, do what you want to do.
Stay classy, San Diego. No, I got nothing. I don't have a good. I'll steal from Ron Burgundy whenever I get a chance. We're gonna raid, right?
You said,
Gonna
"Here
raid,
you go."
gonna raid,
Oh, yeah,
gonna raid
thank
the
you for
guy
the
that brought us
reminder.
all together.
Yeah,
Yes.
I
yeah,
feel like we gotta plug him a little bit, man, because
Yeah,
he
go
is the
check out Paul.
epicenter. Yeah, he's like the epicenter of Star Citizen content creators, and I feel like he deserves that kind of
oh, yeah.
recognition. Because essentially, we all got together because of being on his show at one
Yep,
point in time. or
Absolutely,
another.
He
Yeah.
is the impetus for all of this, pretty much.
Did you say he was
And
impotent? What?
impetus?
Impetus.
Nice, man.
See, this is what NCOs you're getting. Come on, English, man. You got.
All right. I'm
You got to
getting
learn
it
to
set
communicate
up.
to senior leaders, to make decisions. You got to use words.
Yeah. I'm sorry. This is
Uh,
like my job. I'm just gonna try and frazzle a senior officer just about any chance I get.
Impotent. That's
Okay.
great. Oh, well,
We are
Paul,
set
pretty
up to
senior officer.
raid. So thanks again, guys, and we're gonna go raid Paul because he's doing office hours right now.
And we're gonna be there. We're gonna be there too this weekend.
Oh yeah,
with Paul.
Yeah, both of you
we're
guys are
there
going to be
Saturday.
on office hours on Saturday. So if you want to
Super.
hang out with Night Cobb and Attira some more, you'll see them on Saturday with Paul. I was on there last weekend with Astro Gemini.
Yeah.
And Nazarus will be on there on, I think it's the 10th. Yeah, I think it's the 10th. So here we go, rating Paul. Okay, it says ready to
Ghost
raid
Dog.
in 7, 6, 5.
Ghost Dog showed up.
Everybody
Ghost
ready up. Everybody raid.
Yes, sweet girl. I know.
Have a good night, chat. Thank you for hanging out with us.
Good night, guys.
And
Good
raid
night.
now. And now I have to turn off the stream.